The day unwinds, thread by thread. The symphony of traffic fades into a distant hum. The sharp blues of the sky soften into bruised purple and velvet black, and a quiet blanket settles over the world. But as the external world powers down, the internal world often powers up. The silence of the night creates an amphitheater for the echoes of the day, for the conversations you wish had gone differently, for the tasks on tomorrow's list that already feel heavy. There is a unique and often unsettling quality to this quiet time. A moment when all the distractions we use to navigate the day, the constant stream of information, the busy work, the endless scrolling, finally fall away. And in that space, we are left alone with ourselves. It is here, in the stillness of the bedroom, that the ghosts of our anxieties tend to visit. A subtle worry about health, a lingering feeling of not being enough, a regret from years ago that chooses this moment to reappear, sharp and clear. This is the friction of modern life, the feeling of being perpetually busy, yet somehow untethered. We spend our days running and our nights wrestling with the things we were running from. We search for a switch, a button to turn off the relentless churn of the mind, to simply find a small island of peace in the vast ocean of the night, to allow our bodies and our spirits the deep rest they so desperately crave. But what if the answer wasn't a switch to turn things off, but a light to turn on? Not a harsh, interrogating light, but a soft, gentle torch to guide us through the inner landscape. Imagine, for a moment, receiving a final piece of wisdom, a parting gift from one of the greatest explorers of the human mind who ever lived, an instruction distilled from a lifetime of profound insight, offered in his very last moments. This isn't a complex doctrine or a demanding creed. It is a simple, powerful, and deeply compassionate whisper across centuries. A direct message intended for moments just like this. It is the last teaching of the Buddha, a timeless anchor designed to hold you steady through the dark, to transform your bed from a wrestling ring of anxiety into a sanctuary of calm reflection. To truly understand the weight and beauty of this final instruction, I invite you to travel with me, not across space, but across time. Let the sounds of your present world fade away, and allow your mind to settle in a place of quiet imagination. We are going back some 2.5 millennia to a small town in ancient India called Kushinagar. The air here is warm, carrying the scent of dust, damp earth, and fragrant blossoms. The journey is not just a historical exercise. It is a journey into the heart of a sacred moment, because the power of a teaching is profoundly shaped by the context in which it is given. A casual word of advice is one thing, but a final testament, offered at the very threshold between life and death, carries the distilled essence of a lifetime's wisdom. Our journey takes us to a tranquil grove of sal trees. These are tall, broad-leafed trees, and on this day, something miraculous is happening. Though it is not their season, the twin trees that stand sentry over this particular spot are bursting with blossoms, their pale flowers cascading down like a gentle, fragrant snow. It is as if nature itself recognizes the gravity of the moment and is offering its own silent, beautiful tribute. It is here, between these two blossoming trees, that the Buddha, now an old man of 80 years, asked his most devoted attendant, Ananda, to prepare a resting place. He lay down on his right side, his head facing north, one foot resting upon the other, adopting the mindful posture of a lion at rest. He was not collapsing from illness. Though his body was frail and weary, he was consciously, deliberately, composing himself for his final departure from the world. The great parinirvana, the final unbinding from the cycle of birth and death. The scene is one of profound peace, a quiet tableau of acceptance. The air is filled with the hushed reverence of the monks gathered around him. Their ochre robes a stark contrast to the green of the grove and the pale white of the falling flowers. But this external peace was a fragile shell around a core of deep human sorrow. At the heart of this sorrow was Ananda. For 25 years, Ananda had been the Buddha's shadow, his personal attendant, his memory keeper. He had heard every sermon. He had tended to every need. And his love for his master was immense, personal, and deeply felt. But unlike many of the other senior disciples present, Ananda had not yet reached full enlightenment. He had not yet cut the final emotional fetters. And so, the impending death of the Buddha was not just the passing of a great teacher. It was the loss of his dearest friend, his guide, his entire world. The suttas describe him being overwhelmed by grief, unable to bear the sight. He stepped away from the gathering and went to a nearby dwelling, leaning against the doorpost, weeping uncontrollably. He was lost. The light of the world, his light, was about to be extinguished, and he felt utterly alone in the approaching darkness. It is here we see the Buddha's profound compassion, a tenderness that shines even as his physical life wanes. He noticed Ananda's absence and asked for him. When Ananda was brought to his side, his face stained with tears, the Buddha did not offer him false comfort or impossible promises. He offered him the truth, the very truth he had spent 45 years teaching. He said, gently, enough. Ananda, do not grieve. Do not lament. Have I not taught you from the very beginning that with all things that are dear and beloved, there must be change? There must be separation. There must be departure. Everything that is born, that is created, that is compounded, is subject to decay and dissolution. How could it be otherwise for a long time? Ananda, you have attended me with acts of loving kindness, with words of loving kindness, with thoughts of loving kindness that have been loyal, selfless, and boundless. You have done well. Ananda, you have accumulated great merit. Now, you must make the effort, and you too will soon be free from the taints. In these words, we hear not a distant, detached sage, but a loving teacher comforting his dearest student, reminding him that the path to freedom lies not in clinging to what must pass away, but in understanding its nature and striving onward. He was turning Ananda's grief from a paralyzing sorrow into a motivation for his own liberation. This is the emotional backdrop, the quiet sorrow of devoted followers, the boundless compassion of the dying master, and the overarching serenity of a being who had made peace with the ultimate law of existence, impermanence. The Buddha's mind was described as being perfectly clear, unclouded by fear, regret, or pain. He was not a victim of death. He was its host, showing it the same mindful attention he would show to any other guest. This serene departure was perhaps his most powerful teaching, a living demonstration that the goal of his path freedom from suffering, was not a distant theory, but an achievable reality. A state of being that could look upon the end of life with perfect equanimity. For anyone who has lain awake at night, touched by the cold finger of mortality, this image is a profound antidote, a testament to the possibility of a peace that death cannot disturb, even in these final hours. His dedication to the welfare of others was unceasing. As news spread that the Buddha was nearing his end, a wandering ascetic by the name of Subhadra hurried to the Sal Grove. He was an intelligent man, full of questions, and he had heard that a truly enlightened one had appeared in the world. He felt this was his very last chance to have his doubts resolved. Ananda, ever protective of his master's diminishing energy, tried to turn Subhadra away, saying, "Enough. Friend, do not trouble the teacher. He is weary." But the Buddha, with a consciousness that perceives all, overheard the exchange from his resting place. He called to Ananda, "Do not turn Subhadra away. Ananda, let him come. Whatever he asks of me, he will ask for the sake of knowledge and not to annoy me, and he will quickly understand my answers." And so, with his last reserves of strength, the Buddha taught the path to this seeker, explaining the core principles of the Noble Eightfold Path. The sutta tells us that Subhadra's mind was opened, his doubts vanished, and he became the very last person to be personally enlightened by the Buddha. This final act is breathtaking in its generosity. It shows a compassion that does not wane with the body, a commitment to easing the suffering of others that persisted until his very last breath. It is a powerful reminder that it is never too late, that the potential for awakening exists in every single moment, if we only seize it. So picture the scene now. In its entirety, the cool night air, the fragrant rain of sal blossoms, the tear-streaked faces of the monks, the luminous calm of their teacher, and the fresh, quiet joy of a newly enlightened disciple. The atmosphere is charged with sorrow, beauty, love, and a profound sense of peace. It is into this sacred, emotionally resonant, and deeply human space that the Buddha finally gathered his disciples for one last time. He was about to give them their inheritance, not a kingdom, not a scripture, not a successor, but a single, vital instruction, a key, forged in the wisdom of his life and tempered by the reality of his death, a final distillation of everything that mattered. And it is this instruction that he then spoke into the quiet of the grove, a message that has echoed through time to find us here, tonight. And so, in that sacred grove, under the rain of blossoms, the Buddha spoke his final words to the hushed assembly. The words were in Pali, the language of the scriptures, and they were these: Appamadena Sampadetha. On the surface, these two words can seem simple, almost plain. They have been translated into English in many ways, most commonly as "strive on with diligence" or "work out your salvation with heedfulness." These translations are not wrong, but they are like looking at a photograph of a magnificent feast. They give you an idea of what is there, but they cannot convey the aroma, the texture, the rich and layered flavors of the meal itself. Tonight, let us not just glance at the photograph. Let us sit down together at the table and gently, mindfully, unpack the profound meaning held within this final, precious meal of a teaching. Let's begin with the first word, appamada. This word is the cornerstone of the entire instruction. To understand it, we must first understand its opposite, pamada. Pamada means negligence, carelessness, lethargy, or moral laxity. It is the state of living on autopilot, of being forgetful of what is wholesome and what is not. It is the hazy, drowsy state of mind that allows us to be swept away by distraction, to react unconsciously out of anger or greed, to live our days without real intention, only to find ourselves at night wondering where the time went. Pamada is the fog that obscures the path. Therefore, appamada, with the prefix a, which negates the root word, is the direct and powerful antidote to this fog. It is the state of non-negligence, of non-complacency. It is a vigilant, dynamic, and ever-present awareness. While we often translate it as diligence or heedfulness, perhaps the most resonant and practical word for us today is mindfulness. But it is a very specific kind of mindfulness. It is not passive. It is an active, energetic, and protective quality of the mind. Imagine a tightrope walker, poised to cross a vast chasm between two cliffs. The world falls away beneath them, and their only reality is the rope, their body, and their breath. Their focus is absolute. They are not tense, or frantic, or hurried. Any anxiety would cause their hands to tremble and their feet to falter. Instead, they are in a state of supreme, relaxed alertness. They are aware of the slightest breeze, the subtle shift of their own weight, the feeling of the rope beneath their feet. Every single step is a complete universe of attention. This state of unwavering, calm, present moment focus is the perfect illustration of appamada. It is not a stressful striving, but a skillful, careful, and continuous application of attention to the task at hand. In the Buddha's teaching, the chasm is the endless cycle of suffering, and the rope is the path to liberation. Appamada is the quality of mind that allows us to walk that rope, to navigate the perils of greed, hatred, and delusion without falling. It is the inner guardian that watches over the mind, ensuring that we do not stray into carelessness, that we remain awake to our own experience, moment by moment by moment. Now let us turn to the second word, sampaditha. This is the call to action. It is an empowering verb, a word full of agency and potential. It means to accomplish, to achieve, to fulfill, or to bring to completion. Crucially, it implies that this accomplishment is something we must do for ourselves. Notice, the Buddha did not say, "I will complete this for you," or wait to be saved. His final message was one of ultimate personal responsibility. It is a declaration of human potential. He is saying that the capacity for profound peace, for unshakable freedom, lies within you, and the task of realizing it, of bringing it to full fruition, is your own sacred work. So, what is it that we are meant to accomplish? It is not the completion of a worldly project, or the attainment of fame, or the accumulation of wealth. The task that Sampadetha points to is far more profound. It is the accomplishment of the entire path of awakening. It is the fulfilling of our highest potential for wisdom, compassion, and inner freedom. It is the bringing to completion of the journey out of confusion and into clarity, So, when we put the two words together, appamadena sampadeta, we get a message of incredible depth. It is a gentle but urgent plea, with a mind that is ever watchful, ever careful, ever present. You must bring about the completion of your own liberation. It is a call to become the master of your own inner world. This is where we must pause and draw a vital distinction, one that is especially important for our modern ears. Our culture, particularly in the West, has its own version of striving. We call it the hustle. We are taught to constantly push, to optimize, to be productive, to climb ladders of success. This hustle is an external striving. It is fueled by a desire for more money, more status, more recognition. It often leads to a state of chronic stress, exhaustion, and a persistent feeling that we are never quite doing enough. This outward striving can feel like running on a treadmill, a frantic expenditure of energy that ultimately takes us nowhere new. The striving of appamadena sampadetha is the polar opposite. It is an internal striving. It is not about doing more, but about being more present with what you are already doing. It is not about adding more accomplishments to your resume, but about adding more awareness to your moments. The hustle culture asks, what can I get from the world? The culture of heedfulness asks, how can I be more present with the world and with myself? The first leads to burnout. The second leads to balance. The first is a source of tension. The second is the path to its release. The diligence the Buddha speaks of is not the frantic energy of a stressed-out executive, but the calm, steady, and joyful energy of an artist absorbed in their craft. It is the focused effort that arises not from a sense of lack, but from a love for the path itself. So, this final teaching is not another item on your to-do list. It is not another pressure to perform. It is an invitation to shift the very axis of your effort, turning it from the chaotic world outside to the rich and fertile world inside. It is a radical redefinition of what it means to be successful. Success, in these terms, is not measured by what you have, but by your capacity to be at peace with what is. It is the ability to meet your own thoughts and feelings with clarity and kindness. It is the freedom from being a slave to your own unconscious reactions. This is the task we are invited to accomplish, the masterpiece we are invited to complete, and the single most important tool for this sacred work. The brush, the chisel, the guiding light is appamada, this gentle, unwavering, and vigilant mindfulness. Having now understood the profound meaning of this final instruction, we can begin to explore how to cultivate this essential quality in our own lives, transforming it from a beautiful concept into a living, breathing reality. We have unpacked the beautiful, layered meaning of the Buddha's final instruction, appamadena sampadetha, understanding it as a call to accomplish our own freedom through a state of vigilant, non-negligent mindfulness. Now, we must bring this ancient wisdom into the bright, noisy, and often overwhelming context of our 21st century lives. The fundamental challenges of the human heart have not changed since the time of the Buddha. Greed, hatred, and confusion are still the primary drivers of our suffering. However, the external landscape in which these inner states play out has transformed in ways that would have been unimaginable in that quiet grove of sal trees. We live in an age of unprecedented distraction, a world where the greatest battle is fought not on a field, but for the precious, finite territory of our own attention. Consider the environment your mind navigates every single day. It is a digital ecosystem intentionally designed to capture and monetize your focus. From the moment you wake, your smartphone beckons. A Pandora's box of notifications, emails, and endless news feeds. Each ping, each buzz, each red circle is a tiny, engineered hook, promising a small hit of the neurochemical dopamine, a fleeting sense of connection or importance. This creates a powerful feedback loop, training our minds to crave distraction, to feel a low-grade anxiety in moments of quiet, to constantly seek the next stimulus. We call it multitasking, but neuroscience reveals it to be a myth. The brain cannot focus on two complex tasks simultaneously. Instead, it engages in rapid task switching, toggling quickly between one thing and another. This constant switching comes at a cost. It depletes our mental energy, degrades the quality of our work, and leaves us in a state of continuous partial attention, never fully present with our work, with our loved ones, or with ourselves. This fragmented, scattered, and perpetually stimulated state is the very definition of pamada, the negligence and carelessness the Buddha warned against. We are living in a golden age of pamada, a world that actively encourages the fog of mindlessness into this modern pandemic of distraction. The practice of apamada, of heedful mindfulness, arrives asakiyat, radical act of rebellion. It is the practice of reclaiming your own mind. It is important to understand what mindfulness is and what it is not. It is not about forcing your mind to be empty. The mind produces thoughts just as the heart beats. It is what it is designed to do. Trying to stop your thoughts is like trying to stop the waves of the ocean. A frustrating and impossible task. Mindfulness is something far more gentle and far more profound. It is the art of returning. It is the simple, repeated, and endlessly patient act of noticing that your mind has wandered, and without any judgment or self-criticism, gently guiding it back to an anchor in the present moment. The most reliable and readily available anchor is your own breath. It is always with you, a steady, rhythmic companion from the moment of your birth to the moment of your death. Let's try it. Just for a moment, feel the cool air entering your nostrils on the in-breath, and feel the slightly warmer air as it leaves on the out-breath. That's all. The mind may immediately wander, offering a commentary. Am I doing this right? This is boring. I forgot to send that email. The practice is not to scold the mind for wandering. The practice is to notice the thought, perhaps with a soft mental note like thinking, and then, with the kindness you would show to a lost puppy, gently guide your attention back to the simple, physical sensation of the breath. Each time you do this, you are strengthening a mental muscle. You are exercising the faculty of apamada. You are choosing presence over distraction. Each return is a small victory for clarity. To illustrate this, imagine a master hunter, deep in a primordial forest. Their goal is to track a single deer. The forest, like our mind, is full of sounds and movements. A bird calls from a branch above. Leaves rustle in the wind. A twig snaps in the distance. A novice hunter would be distracted by every sound, turning their head, losing sight of their primary purpose. But the master hunter acknowledges these peripheral sounds without losing focus. Their hearing is sharp. They are aware of everything. but their attention remains steadfast on the tracks of the deer. The deer is your anchor, your breath, your present moment. The other sounds in the forest are your wandering thoughts. Mindfulness is the skill of the master hunter, the ability to remain aware of the entire environment of your mind while keeping your primary focus steady and unwavering. This practice is not confined to a meditation cushion. The true power of appamada is revealed when we weave it into the fabric of our ordinary lives, transforming mundane activities into moments of profound presence. When you wake up in the morning, resist the reflexive urge to grab your phone. Instead, for just a minute, bring your full attention to the physical sensation of your feet touching the floor. Feel the texture of the carpet or the coolness of the wood. This is mindfulness. As you drink your morning coffee or tea, instead of scrolling through your phone, take a moment to truly experience it. Notice the warmth of the mug in your hands, the rich aroma, the complex flavors on your tongue. This is appamada in action. You can practice it while washing the dishes, feeling the warm water and soap on your hands. You can practice it while walking, feeling the rhythm of your stride and the movement of your body. These are not small things. They are stitches, patiently sewing a fabric of presence throughout your day, creating a resilient buffer against the chaotic energy of distraction. And this brings us to the night. As you lie in bed, the external distractions of the day finally cease. There are no more emails to answer, no more calls to make. This is when the internal distractions, the thoughts and worries that were drowned out by the daytime noise, can rise up with great intensity. This is the final practice ground of the day. The method remains the same. When a wave of anxiety about tomorrow arises, see it. You can even label it gently in your mind. Worrying. Acknowledge its presence without judgment, and then gently return your attention to the physical sensation of your head on the pillow, the weight of the blanket on your body, the quiet rhythm of your breath rising and falling in your chest. You are not fighting the worry. You are simply choosing not to feed it with your attention. You are letting it be, like a cloud passing in the night sky of your mind, while your attention rests on the solid ground of the present moment. This is the essence of heedfulness, a gentle but firm commitment to inhabit your own life, to be fully present for your own experience, and to reclaim the peace that is your birthright. Right here, in the quiet sanctuary of the night, we have learned to embrace appamada, the gentle, vigilant mindfulness that acts as our guide through the noisy forest of modern life. We have practiced the art of returning, of bringing our scattered attention back to the quiet anchor of the present moment. But this raises a profound and necessary question. What is the purpose of this focus? If we are to be like the master hunter, tracking with unwavering attention, we must be absolutely clear about what we are tracking. All effort, all diligence, is meaningless without a clear destination. This is the function of the second word in the Buddha's final instruction, sampadita, to accomplish, to bring to completion. It is the why that gives power and direction to our how. So tonight, let us explore this question together. What, exactly, are we striving to accomplish? In our modern culture, the idea of striving is almost always linked to self-improvement. We are encouraged to build a better version of ourselves. We read books and listen to podcasts that tell us how to be more productive, more charismatic, more confident, more disciplined. The underlying assumption is that our current self is somehow flawed or deficient, an imperfect block of marble that must be chiseled and sanded into a more ideal form. This project of self-improvement, while often well-intentioned, can easily become another source of anxiety. We create an image of a future, perfected self, and then we judge and berate our present self for not measuring up. It can become an endless and exhausting pursuit of an ever-receding horizon. Another form of hustle culture turned inward. The path outlined by the Buddha offers a radically different perspective. It is not a path of self-improvement, but one of self-understanding. The goal is not to change who you are, but to see with perfect, unshakable clarity what you are. It is not about building a new personality, but about dismantling the illusions that obscure your true nature. Imagine finding a beautiful, ornate mirror that has been left in a dusty attic for generations. It is covered in so much grime and cobwebs that it no longer reflects anything clearly. A project of self-improvement might be like trying to paint a beautiful picture on top of the dirt. A project of self-understanding is the patient, careful work of wiping away the grime. The goal is not to create a new image, but to restore the mirror's inherent capacity to reflect reality, just as it is. The work of Sampadetha, the great accomplishment, is this act of cleaning the mirror of the mind, so that we may finally see without distortion. And what do we see when this mirror is clean? We see the fundamental nature of our own experience. We see the truth, not as a complex philosophical doctrine to be believed, but as a direct, observable reality. The teachings point to three universal characteristics of all conditioned existence. Three truths that become self-evident when the mind is calm and clear. They are known as the three marks of existence. The first is anicca, or impermanence. With a mindful heart, we begin to see, not just intellectually, but on a gut level, that everything is in a constant state of flux. This body that we cherish is changing with every breath. The thoughts that feel so solid and important appear from nowhere and vanish into nowhere. The emotions that can overwhelm us, from joy to sorrow, rise like waves and inevitably fall. Even the mountains are slowly eroding. Seeing this doesn't lead to nihilism or despair. On the contrary, it is incredibly liberating. When you know, truly know, that everything is impermanent, you stop clinging so desperately to pleasant experiences, which allows you to enjoy them more fully while they last, and you stop resisting unpleasant experiences with such terror, knowing that they too will pass. It is the secret to finding balance in a world that is always changing. The second mark is dukkha, which is often translated as suffering, but its meaning is more subtle. It refers to the pervasive, underlying sense of unsatisfactoriness that is woven into the fabric of ordinary, unconscious life. It is the feeling of friction, the subtle stress that comes from seeking permanent security and happiness in a world that is, by its very nature, impermanent and insecure. It is the disappointment that arises when the things we thought would make us happy don't, or when the happiness they provide quickly fades. The purpose of our striving is not to pretend this friction doesn't exist, but to understand its origin, our own craving and clinging. By observing this dukkha with mindful attention, we learn to stop feeding the conditions that create it. The third and most profound mark is anatta, or not self. This is perhaps the most misunderstood of all the teachings. It is not a declaration that you do not exist. You are clearly here. Hearing these words, Rather, it is the radical insight that within this entire mind-body process, there is no fixed, solid, independent self acting as a CEO. What we call ourself is actually a dynamic, interdependent process, a flowing river of 5 components: our physical body, our feelings, our perceptions, our mental formations or thoughts, and our consciousness. There is no little person inside. Separate from these processes, who is in charge? When you look closely with a clear mind, you see there is breathing, but no permanent breather. There is thinking, but no permanent thinker. Seeing this directly is the key that unlocks the deepest prison of all, the prison of the ego. When you realize there is no fixed self to defend, you become less defensive. When you see there is no permanent self to aggrandize, you become more humble. This insight is the ultimate letting go, the source of unshakable peace. This, then, is the goal of Sampadetha. The great accomplishment is to see these truths for ourselves. And when we see them, our effort naturally shifts. The striving is no longer to gain something, but to let go. We strive to let go of our attachment to pleasure. We strive to let go of our aversion to pain. We strive to let go of the mistaken belief in a solid, separate self. This letting go is not a passive weakness, but an act of profound wisdom and strength. It is the courageous relaxation of the clenched fist of the ego. The Buddha told a beautiful story to illustrate this. He spoke of a man who needed to cross a great, dangerous river. There was no bridge and no ferry. So, with great effort, the man gathered logs and vines and built himself a sturdy raft. Using the raft, he paddled safely to the other shore. The Buddha then asked, "What should this wise man do now? Should he, out of gratitude and attachment to the raft that saved him, hoist it onto his shoulders and carry it with him on his journey? Of course not." The monks replied, "He should pull it onto the bank, express his thanks, and continue his journey unburdened." The Buddha explained that his teachings, the Dharma, are like that raft. They are brilliantly designed, essential tools for crossing the river of suffering to the other shore of liberation. But they are a means to an end, not the end itself. The goal is the other shore. That shore is called nirvana. It is not a physical place, not a heaven in the sky. It is a state of mind, available to us in this very life. It is the complete extinguishing of the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion. It is the profound peace and freedom that arises when we finally stop fighting with reality. This is what we are striving for. This is the noble purpose of our mindful diligence. It is the accomplishment of a mind that is free, a heart that is boundless, and a spirit that is finally at peace. And to do this profound work, to see so clearly and to let go so completely, we need a proper space in which to practice. We need to tend to the very ground of our being, our own mind, which, as we are about to see, is very much like a garden waiting for a caring hand. We have established the profound purpose of our spiritual path, the great accomplishment of Sampadetha, which is to see reality with perfect clarity and thereby find freedom. But to undertake such a journey, we need a framework, a metaphor that can make this abstract work feel more tangible and intuitive, especially as we settle into the quiet of the night. So I invite you to consider this simple, ancient, and powerful image. Your mind is a garden. This plot of land is your sacred inheritance, your personal sanctuary. It has the potential to be a place of extraordinary beauty, a source of nourishment, peace, and delight, filled with fragrant flowers and life-giving fruit. Or, if left untended, it can become a thorny, overgrown, and chaotic thicket, a place of shadows and hidden dangers. The state of your garden is not predetermined. It depends entirely on the skill, care, and attention of its one and only gardener, you. Let us first consider the nature of an untended garden. What happens when we live in a state of pamada, of negligence and mindlessness? Weeds grow. They do not need an invitation. They do not require careful cultivation. They are opportunistic and aggressive, and they thrive on neglect. In the garden of the mind, these weeds are the unwholesome mental states that cause us so much pain. Think of anxiety, that relentless, thorny vine that seems to grow out of nowhere. It wraps itself around the delicate stems of your peace, choking the life out of them. Its roots run deep into the dark soil of future uncertainties, and the more you ignore it, the stronger its grip becomes. Consider resentment or anger. These are like patches of stinging nettles. Even a brief, accidental brush against them leaves a painful, burning welt on the mind that lasts long after the initial contact. They poison the soil around them, making it difficult for anything gentle or wholesome to grow nearby. And what of that pervasive weed of self-doubt? The inner critic. This is like a shadowy fungus that flourishes in the damp, dark corners of the mind. It doesn't announce itself loudly. It works quietly, weakening the foundations of your most beautiful qualities, whispering that the flowers of your achievements are not bright enough, that the fruits of your efforts are flawed. It drains the color from your inner world, leaving you feeling perpetually inadequate. Then there is the invasive species of comparison, which we water every time we scroll through the curated highlight reels of other people's lives. It spreads with incredible speed, its insidious presence making all the unique, native flowers in our own garden seem plain and unremarkable. These weeds of anxiety, anger, self-doubt, and comparison are the default vegetation of the unconscious mind. They will grow all by themselves, creating a dense and painful inner landscape if we do not take up the tools of the mindful gardener. This is where appamada, vigilant heedfulness, becomes our primary practice. Appamada is the gentle art of mindful gardening. The first and most crucial skill of any gardener is to be able to distinguish a weed from a precious seedling. This requires quiet observation and careful attention. In the mind, this is the practice of seeing a thought arise and recognizing it for what it is, without immediately identifying with it. As you lie in bed, a familiar worry about work might appear. The mindful gardener doesn't immediately get lost in the story of the worry. Instead, there is a moment of clear recognition. Ah, I see you. The weed of anxiety or a flash of irritation towards someone might arise. The practice is to note, here is the stinging nettle of anger. This simple act of naming and recognizing creates a space. In that space, you are no longer the weed. You are the gardener who is observing the weed. This is a profound shift in perspective, from being a victim of your thoughts to being the custodian of your mind. Once you have recognized a weed, what is the most effective way to deal with it? If you try to violently rip it out of the ground, you might scatter its seeds, causing more to grow. If you curse it and fight it. You are still giving it your energy and attention. The wise gardener understands a simple principle: that which you feed will grow, and that which you starve will wither. To starve a weed, you must stop watering it and stop giving it sunlight. In the garden of the mind, our attention is the water and sunlight. When we obsess over an anxious thought, replay an angry conversation, or indulge in self-criticism, we are diligently watering these weeds, helping their roots grow deeper. The practice of mindful weeding, therefore, is the practice of consciously withdrawing your attention. You see the anxious thought, you acknowledge its presence, and then you gently but firmly guide your focus elsewhere, perhaps to the feeling of your breath, or the sensation of the blanket on your skin. You are not suppressing the thought or pretending it isn't there. You are simply choosing not to feed it. Without the nourishment of your sustained focus, the weed loses its power. It may still be there for a while, but it begins to wither on the vine. This is a continuous, patient work. It is the gentle, daily discipline of tending to your inner world. But a beautiful garden is not merely one that is free of weeds. A gardener's joy comes from actively cultivating flowers. It is not enough to simply remove the negative. We must also intentionally nurture the positive. These are the wholesome states of mind, the fragrant blossoms that bring beauty, peace, and joy. Think of compassion, karuna, as a soft, fragrant rose. When you tend to it, its gentle presence makes the entire garden a more tender and forgiving place. Think of loving kindness, metta, as the warm, life-giving sun. When you practice metta, you are shining this warmth on all the plants in your garden, especially on yourself, encouraging everything to grow with strength and vitality. Patience, Hanti, is like a great, deep-rooted oak tree. It provides shade and stability, remaining firm and tranquil, even when the storms of life rage around it. Joy in the happiness of others. Mudita is like a patch of brightly colored, dancing wildflowers, celebrating the beauty of the entire landscape without envy. Cultivating these flowers requires a conscious effort. It means taking the time to bring these qualities to mind, to savor them, to water them with our attention. As you prepare for sleep, you can intentionally think of one thing you are grateful for. You can actively send wishes of loving kindness to yourself, to your loved ones, and even to those you find difficult. Each time you do this, you are planting a seed, watering a flower, and making your inner garden a more beautiful and habitable place. There is a timeless story, often attributed to the Cherokee people, that perfectly illustrates this principle. An elder is teaching his grandson about life. He says, "A fight is going on inside me. It is a terrible fight between two wolves. One is evil, he is anger, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, and ego. The other is good, he is joy, peace, love, our hope, serenity, kindness, and faith." The grandson thinks about this for a minute and then asks his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old man replies simply, "The one you feed." This story is the secret of the garden. Your mind is this sacred ground where the two wolves roam. The weeds and the flowers both lie in wait. The quality of your inner life The landscape you inhabit day and night is determined by this simple, profound choice. Which one will you feed? Which one will you water with your precious attention? The practice of appamada is the wisdom of knowing how to starve the weeds and how to nourish the flowers. But to be a truly wise gardener, to know when to plant and when to prune, you must understand the fundamental laws of nature that govern this garden, the cycle of the seasons, the nature of the sun and the rain. In the world of the mind, the most fundamental law of all is the law of change, of impermanence, and it is to this great truth that we shall turn our attention next. We have likened our mind to a garden, a sacred plot of land where we, as mindful gardeners, can choose to cultivate beautiful flowers and starve the invasive weeds. But every wise gardener knows that their work is not done in a vacuum. A garden is subject to the great, impersonal laws of nature, the rising and setting of the sun, the coming of the rain, and most fundamentally, the turning of the seasons. A gardener who tries to grow spring blossoms in the dead of winter is a gardener who will meet with frustration and failure. Wisdom lies in understanding these natural cycles and working in harmony with them. In the grand garden of our existence, there is one single, overarching season, one fundamental law that governs every single thing, from the distant galaxies to the most fleeting thought in our mind. This law is anicca, the universal truth of impermanence. To truly grasp the Buddha's final instruction, we must remember the context in which it was given. He spoke these words as his own body was failing, as he was preparing to let go of his final breath. His last teaching was not delivered from an abstract, theoretical position, but from the very heart of impermanence itself. He was demonstrating, with his own serene departure, the truth he had taught for 45 years. Everything that comes into being is subject to passing away. There are no exceptions. This is not a morbid or pessimistic declaration. It is a simple, observable, and ultimately liberating fact. It is the steady ground upon which a life of wisdom must be built. Let us look for this truth in our own lives. Right now, look at the world around you. The seasons turn. Day gives way to night. Relationships begin and end. Fortunes rise and fall. We see this, and we acknowledge it intellectually. Yet we so often live as if it weren't true. We build our lives as if the current arrangement is permanent. And so we are shocked and wounded when the inevitable changes come. But impermanence operates on a much more intimate level. Consider the body you inhabit. This body is not the same one you had 10 years ago, or even 1 year ago. Every moment, millions of your cells are dying, and new ones are being born. Your body is not a static object, like a stone statue. It is a flowing river of processes, a dynamic, ever-changing event. To see your body not as a solid thing, but as a process is to begin to loosen the grip of attachment and fear. And if we look even more closely into the very nature of our mind, the truth of anicca becomes blindingly clear. As you lie here, simply notice the thoughts that appear. Where do they come from? They arise from a seeming nowhere. They linger for a moment, perhaps a second, perhaps a minute, and where do they go? They vanish back into that same nowhere, replaced by the next thought, the next sensation, the next feeling. Our inner world is a constant, flickering display of mental events. A feeling of peace arises, and it is pleasant. We immediately try to grasp it, to hold on to it. but the very act of grasping causes it to slip through our fingers. A feeling of anxiety arises, and it is unpleasant. We immediately try to push it away, to resist it. But the very act of resisting often gives it more energy and power. This endless cycle of grasping for what we like and pushing away what we dislike is the primary activity of the untended mind. And it is a battle we can never win, because we are fighting against the fundamental law of reality. We are trying to build a permanent dam in a flowing river. The work of wisdom is to stop fighting and instead to learn how to skillfully navigate the current, understanding impermanence. Then is the ultimate motivation for appamada, for heedful diligence. It answers the question, why practice now? Our culture is steeped in the habit of procrastination. We think, I will start meditating when work settles down, or I will focus on being more present with my family when I've finished this big project, or I will deal with my inner life when I retire. We live as though we have an infinite amount of time. The truth of impermanence gently but firmly shakes us awake from this dream. It reveals that the only time we have is now, this very moment, this very breath. The future is an idea. The past is a memory. The only ground we can ever stand on is the ground of the present. Realizing this doesn't create panic. It creates preciousness. When you know that your time with a loved one is finite, you treat that time with more care, more love, more attention. When you know that this life, this unique, miraculous opportunity to be conscious and awake is a fleeting gift, you stop taking it for granted. The diligence the Buddha speaks of is not a grim chore. It is the joyful, urgent response of a heart that has woken up to the incredible preciousness of this transient life. There is a famous story that illustrates this awakening with heartbreaking beauty. A young woman named Kisa Gotami lived in the time of the Buddha, and her heart was shattered when her only infant son died. Consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness, she refused to accept his death. She picked up his small body and wandered through her village, going from door to door, desperately begging for a medicine that could bring him back to life. Some mocked her, others pitied her, but no one could help. Finally, a wise old man, seeing her unbearable pine, directed her to the one person who might have a cure. He sent her to the Buddha. Kisa Gotami ran to the Buddha, laid her son at his feet, and pleaded for a medicine. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion. He did not dismiss her or lecture her on acceptance. He met her where she was. There is only one medicine that can help, he said, but to make it, I need a special ingredient. I need you to go back into the village and bring me a single mustard seed from a house where no one has ever lost a loved one, be it a child, a parent, a spouse, or a friend. A mustard seed was the most common of spices. This seemed like an easy task. A surge of hope filled Kisa Gotami's heart, and she immediately set off. She went to the first house, her son still in her arms. The Buddha has sent me, she explained. I need a mustard seed to make a medicine for my child. Of course, the woman of the house said, we have plenty. As the woman went to get it, Kisa Gotami asked, has anyone in this house ever died? The woman's face fell. Oh, my lady, she said softly, the living are few, but the dead are many. We lost our grandfather just last year. With a heavy heart, Kisa Gotami went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was the same everywhere. Every family had mustard seeds to spare, but every family had also known the profound pain of loss. One had lost a sister, another a husband, another a baby just like hers. As evening fell, she found herself sitting by the side of the road, exhausted and empty-handed. She looked out over the village and watched as the lamps were lit in the houses, their lights twinkling in the growing darkness. She watched for a long time, and then she saw them begin to flicker out, one by one, until the entire village was dark. In that profound silence, a deep understanding dawned within her. The lives of people were just like these lamps, flaring up for a while only to be extinguished. Death was not her unique tragedy. It was the shared, universal destiny of all living things. Her personal, isolating grief dissolved into a vast, compassionate understanding of our common fate. She gently laid her son to rest and returned to the Buddha. "Have you brought the mustard seed?" he asked. "The work is done, my lord," she replied. "I have seen the truth." She had confronted the great law of anicca, and in doing so, had taken the first step on the path to true peace. This is the wisdom that impermanence offers us as we lie down to sleep, when we are experiencing moments of happiness and peace. We can savor them fully, without the anxious need to make them permanent. And when we are visited by sorrow, pain, or fear, we can meet them with greater courage, knowing that they too are just passing clouds in the vast sky of the mind. This understanding fosters equanimity. It is the foundation of a stable and resilient heart, a heart that has made its peace with the beautiful, heartbreaking, and ever-changing flow of life. And once we have accepted this flow, we are ready to look more deeply into the nature of the waves themselves, into the universal experience that the Buddha called dukkha, having laid the foundation of our spiritual garden on the great, unavoidable law of impermanence. Anicca, our diligent practice now calls us to look with that same clear-eyed honesty at the very texture of our experience. A wise gardener not only understands the seasons but also knows the quality of their soil, its acidity, its clay content, its challenges in the landscape of the mind. This means turning our attention towards the universal experience that the Buddha placed at the very heart of his teachings. The first noble truth, the truth of dukkha. This Pali word is most often translated as suffering, and this translation can be misleading. It can paint the Buddhist worldview as pessimistic, morbid, or life-denying. But this is a profound misunderstanding. To understand dukkha is not to become sad, it is to become free. Dukkha does not just refer to the gross, dramatic agonies of life like disease, tragedy, or loss. It points to a vast spectrum of human experience, ranging from acute pain to the most subtle, pervasive background hum of dissatisfaction. It is the inherent friction we feel when our desires meet the unyielding reality of an impermanent world. The Buddha was not a pessimist. He was a courageous and compassionate doctor of the human spirit. Like any great physician, his first step was not to offer false comfort, but to make an honest and accurate diagnosis. The declaration that there is dukkha is this diagnosis. It is a courageous invitation to stop running, to stop pretending, and to gently, mindfully, look at the nature of our own discomfort. It is the necessary first step before any true healing can begin. To help us understand this, the teachings break dukkha down into three distinct, though often overlapping, types. The first type is the most obvious dukkha, which can be translated as the pain of pain. This is the suffering that no one can deny. It is the sharp pain of a throbbing headache, the dull ache in a joint, the exhaustion of a sleepless night. It is also the mental and emotional pain that is so familiar to us, the sting of a cruel word, the anxiety that clutches our stomach before a difficult conversation, the deep, hollow grief that follows a profound loss, the shame of a past mistake that haunts our quiet moments. Our habitual reaction to this kind of pain is immediate aversion. We try to numb it, escape it, or distract ourselves from it. We reach for our phones. We lose ourselves in entertainment. We do anything to avoid sitting with the raw reality of our discomfort. The practice of appamada, of diligent mindfulness, asks us to do something radical. It invites us to gently turn towards the pain, not to wallow in it or to amplify its story, but simply to observe it as a raw sensation in the body and mind. We bring a curious and kind attention to it, breathing with it, allowing it to be there without adding a second layer of fear or resistance. The second type of dukkha is more subtle, and it is intimately connected to the law of impermanence. It is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This is the pain that arises, paradoxically, from our pleasant experiences. It is the subtle sadness that tinges the end of a beautiful vacation. It is the quiet ache of nostalgia for a happy time that is now gone. It is the disappointment that inevitably follows when a thrilling experience, a delicious meal, or a moment of joy fades away, as it always must. The suffering here is not inherent in the pleasant experience itself. It is created entirely by our clinging, by our desperate attempt to make a transient moment permanent. We try to grasp a beautiful sunset and hold it, and our suffering is the feeling of the light inevitably draining from our fingers. Mindful diligence, in this context, is the art of holding our joys lightly. It is the wisdom to savor a sweet fruit fully while we are eating it, without lamenting that the taste will soon be gone. It is learning to appreciate the beauty of a wave, without demanding that it freeze in place for our benefit. It allows us to participate in the joys of life with an open hand, rather than a clenched fist, freeing us from the inevitable pain of losing what we were trying to possess. The third type of dukkha is the deepest and most pervasive. It is sankhara dukkha, the suffering of conditioned existence. This is the background hum of dissatisfaction, the subtle but persistent feeling of being not quite at ease that can follow us, even when things are going well. It is a fundamental existential friction. It is the stress of being a self that must be maintained, defended, and propped up in a world we cannot control. It is the restlessness that keeps us seeking the next thing, the next purchase, the next relationship, the next achievement, always hoping that this next thing will finally fill an inner void and make us feel complete and secure. It stems from the fact that we are a conditioned being, a complex bundle of ever-changing physical and mental processes that we mistake for a solid, permanent, independent self. This baseline anxiety is so constant that we often don't even notice it, like the hum of a refrigerator in our own kitchen. But it is there. The diligent practice of deep mindfulness allows us to finally notice this hum, to observe this fundamental vulnerability of our existence not with fear, but with a gentle, compassionate curiosity. To make this entire teaching profoundly practical, the Buddha offered a powerful parable, the story of the second arrow. He said that an ordinary, untrained person, when struck by a painful event, a physical illness, a harsh word, a loss, is like being shot by an arrow. This first arrow is the unavoidable pain of life itself. It hurts. But what does the ordinary person do next? They immediately begin to worry, to complain, to feel sorry for themselves, and to resist the pain. They think, "Why did this happen to me? This is terrible. I can't bear it. How long will this last?" This entire stream of mental reactivity, he said, is like shooting a second arrow into yourself. In the very same spot, this second arrow of our own mental reaction is often far more painful and causes far more damage than the first. A wise practitioner, a student of mindfulness, when struck by the first arrow, still feels the pain. They do not become numb, but they have cultivated enough awareness to stop, to breathe, and to refrain from shooting the second arrow. They don't add the layer of mental proliferation and storytelling. They simply attend to the wound of the first arrow with compassion and care. This is the heart of the practice. To diligently observe dukkha is to learn how not to shoot the second arrow. When a painful feeling arises at night, you feel it as a raw sensation, the first arrow, but you make the conscious choice not to add the story of "my terrible life" or "I'll never get to sleep" the second arrow. You meet the pain with breath, with softness, with acceptance. This practice does not eliminate the first arrows of life. They are an unavoidable part of the human condition. But it gives us the power to stop creating our own unnecessary suffering, to stop wounding ourselves again and again. The Buddha's teaching on dukkha is not a message of despair. It is a message of profound hope. A doctor who can accurately diagnose an illness is a doctor who can prescribe a cure by courageously and clearly identifying the nature of our suffering. The Buddha was not condemning us to it. He was showing us the way out. For he didn't just teach the first noble truth of suffering, he also taught the second, its cause, the third, its cessation, and most importantly for us, the fourth, the clear, practical, and time-tested path that leads to the end of suffering. To walk that path requires energy, commitment, and a reliable map. That map is the Noble Eightfold Path, and our diligent effort, our appamada, is the fuel that allows us to travel it. We have stood together at the edge of the great river of our experience, and we have looked honestly at its currents. We have acknowledged the universal law of impermanence, anicca, and we have had the courage to gently diagnose the inherent friction of life. The truth of dukkha. To know these truths is a profound step, but the Buddha's path is not one of passive observation alone. It is a path of compassionate action, of transformation. Having diagnosed the illness, the great physician then offered the prescription, the cure. This is the fourth noble truth, the path that leads to the end of suffering. This path is not a vague set of suggestions. It is a clear, detailed, and holistic blueprint for a wise and awakened life. It is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. As you rest tonight, do not think of this path as a daunting list of rules to be followed, or a linear staircase you must climb one step at a time. It is far more organic, more beautiful than that. Imagine it as a magnificent diamond with 8 distinct facets, Each facet is unique, yet each reflects the light of all the others. When all 8 are polished, the entire jewel shines with a brilliant, unified light. These 8 facets address every aspect of our human life, our understanding, our intentions, our conduct in the world, and the inner workings of our own mind. The Buddha's final instruction, appamadena sampadeta, strive on with heedfulness, is not a separate 9th step. It is the gentle, persistent polishing cloth that we apply to every single facet, every single day, to make this beautiful design easier to comprehend. These 8 factors are traditionally grouped into 3 essential trainings: the training in wisdom, orpanya, the training in ethical conduct, or sila, and the training in mental discipline, or samadhi. Think of it like preparing for a great mountain climb. Wisdom is your map and compass. It tells you where you are and in which direction you must go. Ethical conduct is your gear and your code of behavior on the trail. It ensures you do not harm yourself or others, and that your journey is safe and stable. Mental discipline is the actual strength, stamina, and focus required for the climb itself, for placing one foot carefully in front of the other. All 3 are essential. Without the map, your strength is useless. Without strength, your map is just a piece of paper. And without ethical conduct, your journey will be fraught with unnecessary danger and distress. Let us first look at the training in wisdom, which consists of the first 2 path factors. This is our map. It begins with right view, or right understanding. This is the foundation of the entire path. It means seeing reality clearly, without the distortions of our fears, fantasies, and conditioning. It means understanding the law of cause and effect, that our actions have consequences. Most importantly, it means grasping the 4 noble truths. We have been exploring understanding the nature of dukkha, its cause in our own clinging, the possibility of its cessation, and this very path as the way to that cessation. Right view is our orienting principle, our diligent heedfulness, our appamada, is what keeps us consulting this map. It's the practice of checking in with ourselves. Are my views based in reality? Or am I lost in a story of blame, victimhood, or wishful thinking? The second facet of wisdom is right intention, or right thought. If right view is the map, right intention is setting the compass of our heart. It means making a conscious choice to cultivate 3 specific types of intention. The intention of renunciation, which is the willingness to let go of our clinging and attachments. The intention of goodwill, which is the active cultivation of loving kindness towards all beings, including ourselves. And the intention of harmlessness, which is the compassionate wish that all beings be free from suffering. Diligence here is a beautiful, quiet practice. Especially at night, we can reflect on the intentions that drove us today. Were they based in kindness or in fear and selfishness? And we can gently set our intentions for the day to come, aligning our inner compass with the direction of wisdom and love. Next comes the training in ethical conduct, or sila. This is how we walk the path in the world. It governs our relationships with others and consists of 3 factors. First is right speech. This means abstaining from lying, from divisive speech that sets people against each other, from harsh words spoken in anger, and from idle chatter that clutters the mind. Heedfulness here is the mindful pause we take before we speak, asking ourselves, is what I am about to say true Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it beneficial? This practice alone can transform our relationships and bring immense peace to our lives. Second is right action, which involves refraining from actions that cause physical harm, such as killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. It is a deep respect for the life, safety, and autonomy of all beings. Third is right livelihood, which encourages us to earn a living in a way that is honorable and does not bring harm to others or the planet. It is a call to bring our ethics into our economic activity. It is crucial to understand that Sila is not about being a good person to win approval. It has a deeply practical, psychological purpose. A life of harmful speech and action creates a mind filled with agitation, guilt, fear, and remorse. Such a mind is like a turbulent, muddy pond. It cannot be calm, and it cannot reflect wisdom. Ethical conduct creates a peaceful, clear, and stable mind, the necessary foundation for the deeper work of meditation. This leads us to the final training, the heart of our inner work, mental discipline, or samadhi. This is the actual climbing, the strengthening of the mind itself. It also consists of 3 factors. First is right effort. This is the joyful and persistent energy we bring to tending the garden of our mind. It is the effort to prevent unwholesome states from arising, to abandon them if they have arisen, to cultivate wholesome states, and to maintain and perfect them once they have arisen. It is the engine of the path. Next is right mindfulness. This is our appamada, our heedfulness, crystallized into a formal practice. It is the sustained, moment-to-moment awareness of our own experience, mindfulness of the body, of feelings, of the mind itself, and of the content of the mind. It is the steady, watchful presence of the gardener and the focused gaze of the master hunter. The final factor is right concentration. This is the fruit that grows from the sustained practice of right effort and right mindfulness. It is the ability of the mind to become unified, to rest upon a single object of meditation without distraction. This state of deep calm, known as samatha, leads to profound stability and clarity, which in turn gives rise to liberating insight, or vipassana. It is like reaching a high, stable vantage point on the mountain, from which you can finally see the entire landscape with breathtaking clarity. And so we see how these 8 facets form a complete and perfect system. Our wisdom guides our actions. Our ethical actions create a peaceful mind, and a peaceful mind is able to cultivate the focused awareness that gives rise to even deeper wisdom. It is a beautiful, self-reinforcing spiral of awakening. The Buddha's final words, appamadena sampadita, are the unifying thread, the vital energy that runs through it all. Heedfulness is what ensures our view is right. Heedfulness is what we practice in our speech and actions. Heedfulness is the very essence of right mindfulness and right effort. The path is not a theory to be memorized. It is a way of life to be embodied, moment by heedful moment. With this complete and practical map now in our hands, we are ready to begin exploring the actual terrain of our journey, the very ground beneath our feet. And we will start with the most solid, tangible, and ever-present aspect of our reality, our own body. We have been given the great map, the noble eightfold path, a complete guide to lead us from the shores of confusion to the land of peace. A map is a beautiful and necessary thing. But a journey of 1,000 miles must begin with a single, conscious step. So, where do we place our foot first? Where is the solid ground in our own experience? The Buddha, in his profound and practical wisdom, did not ask us to begin with an abstract concept or a complex philosophy. He asked us to begin where we already are, with the most tangible, immediate, and undeniable aspect of our existence, our own body. This is the first foundation of mindfulness. And for us, tonight, it is our primary anchor in the vast ocean of the mind. Think about it for a moment. Where does your mind love to live? It often lives in the past, replaying conversations, reliving old hurts, basking in the glow of faded memories. Or it lives in the future, rehearsing for challenges that may never come, spinning out webs of anxiety, dreaming of a better tomorrow. The mind is a natural time traveler, but the body is always, unfailingly, in the present moment. The feeling of the pillow beneath your head is not happening tomorrow. It is happening right now. The gentle weight of the blanket on your skin is not a memory from yesterday. It is a sensation of this very instant. The rhythmic, faithful rise and fall of your own breath is happening now, and now, and now. The body is our anchor to the here and now. When our mind is swept away in a storm of thought, the simple act of returning our awareness to a physical sensation is how we find our way back to the safe harbor of the present. For many of us, our relationship with our body is a complicated one. We often treat it like a machine, a vehicle to carry our head around, ignoring its subtle signals until it screams at us with pain or illness. Or we treat it like an object, an ornament to be judged by external standards, a source of pride or shame. The practice of mindfulness of the body is a gentle invitation to come home. It is an opportunity to shift from judging our body or using our body to simply inhabiting our body with a kind and curious presence. It is an act of deep listening, of reconciliation, of befriending this faithful vessel that carries us through life. As we prepare for sleep, there is no better practice to release the accumulated tensions of the day and to ground ourselves in a state of profound peace. So, I invite you now to join me in this gentle exploration. There is nothing to achieve, nothing to force. This is simply an act of discovery. Begin by finding a comfortable position, lying on your back if possible, letting your arms rest by your sides and your legs fall naturally. Allow your eyes to gently close. Take a slow, deep breath in, and as you breathe out, imagine all the tension of the day flowing out with it, leaving your body just a little heavier, a little softer on the surface beneath you. Do this one more time. A long, slow breath in and a complete, letting go breath out. Now, I invite you to gather your attention like a soft, warm light and bring it all the way down to the toes of your left foot. You don't need to wiggle them or even visualize them. Simply feel them from the inside. See if you can notice any sensations here, perhaps a feeling of warmth or coolness, tingling, pressure from the blanket. Or perhaps you feel nothing at all. Whatever you find is perfectly fine. There is no right or wrong way to feel. Just notice. Allow your awareness to expand, to fill the sole of your left foot, the heel resting on the bed, the top of your foot, just being present with this part of your body. And now, Let this gentle awareness travel over to your right foot, exploring the toes of the right foot, the sole, the heel, the ankle, simply resting your attention here, in this quiet, curious, and kind way. Now, allow your awareness to begin to travel slowly up both legs, feeling into the shins and the calf muscles, the knees, front and back, and up into the large muscles of your thighs. As you bring your awareness to each area, see if you can meet whatever sensations you find with acceptance. If you discover a point of tension, there is no need to fight it. Instead, you might try breathing into it, imagining your warm breath flowing to that area, holding the tension in a soft, compassionate awareness. Then, as you breathe out, perhaps it softens, perhaps it lets go just a little. Bring your awareness now into the area of your pelvis, your hips, your buttocks, feeling their weight and contact with the bed. Let this awareness flow up into your lower back, an area where so many of us hold tension. Just notice what is there. Let the light of your attention move up into your abdomen, feeling the gentle rise on the in-breath and the soft fall on the out-breath, moving up into your chest, feeling that same gentle rhythm, feeling your heart beating steadily in its center. Let your awareness spread across your upper back and out to your shoulder blades. From your shoulders, let your attention flow down both of your arms, all the way to your hands. Pay special attention to your hands. Notice the palms, the backs of the hands, and each finger, one by one. Our hands do so much for us during the day. Grasping, typing, holding. Now, they can simply rest. Their work is done. Allow them to be soft. Now, bring your awareness up through your neck, another common harbor for tension. Let the muscles of your neck be soft. Let your awareness fill your jaw, and see if you can allow the jaw to unclench just a little. Let your lips rest gently together. Feel your cheeks, your nose, the delicate area around your eyes. Let your eyelids be soft. Resting lightly, bring your awareness to your forehead, inviting it to be smooth and wide. And finally, bring your attention to the very top of your head, the scalp. Now, for a few moments, see if you can feel the entire body as one unified field of sensation. From the tips of your toes to the top of your head, feel the whole body breathing, in and out. There is nowhere to go, nothing to do. Simply rest here, at home, in your own body. This is your anchor. This is the first foundation. The Buddha once told a story about a master acrobat and his young assistant who performed a dangerous balancing act on a tall bamboo pole. To ensure their safety, the master said to his assistant, "Now, you look after me, and I will look after you. By protecting each other, we will perform our act safely and come down unharmed." But the wise young assistant replied, "No, Master, that is not the best way. A better way would be this: I will look after myself, and you will look after yourself. By each of us diligently establishing our own balance, by each of us tending to our own foundation, we will thus protect each other, perform our act safely, and come down unharmed." The Buddha explained that this is the very nature of the path. We establish ourselves firmly in our own mindfulness. We take care of our own foundation. We anchor ourselves in our own body. our own breath. By doing so, we not only create peace and safety for ourselves, but we become a stable, balanced, and safe presence for everyone else in our lives. So as you continue to rest here, anchored in the quiet, steady reality of your physical body, you have established a safe harbor. You have come home to the present moment, and from this place of grounded, embodied presence, you are now beautifully prepared to observe the more subtle and often more turbulent currents of your inner world, the ceaseless, changing waves of your feelings. Having found a safe and stable harbor in the physical sensations of our body, we now turn our attention from the solid ground to the ever-changing weather of our inner world. From our anchor, we now learn to observe the currents and the tides. This is the second foundation of mindfulness, the practice of being present with our feelings. In the language of the Buddha, the word for feeling is Vedana. It refers not to the complex, story-laden emotions we usually talk about, but to the raw, immediate energetic tone of any experience. It is the simple, direct quality of an event as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, this constant stream of feeling tones, and our unconscious reaction to them is the engine that drives so much of our inner turmoil. Learning to observe this process with calm, steady attention is the key to emotional freedom. Every single moment of our waking, and even our dreaming life, is accompanied by one of these three feeling tones. First, there is pleasant feeling, Sukha Vedana. This is the warmth of a comfortable bed, the sweet taste of a piece of fruit, the joy of hearing good news, the feeling of connection with a loved one. Our automatic, deeply conditioned reaction to pleasant feeling is to grasp, to cling, to say, "I want more of this. Don't let this end." We try to hold on to a passing moment of pleasure, and in that very act of clinging, we sow the seeds of future suffering, because all pleasant feelings are, by their nature, impermanent. Second, there is unpleasant feeling, Dukkha Vedana. This is the ache in a sore muscle, the frustration of being misunderstood, the sting of criticism, the cold grip of fear. Our automatic reaction to unpleasant feeling is aversion, resistance. We immediately try to push it away, to deny it, to escape it. We say, "I don't want this. Get this away from me." And in that very act of resistance, we often give the unpleasant feeling more energy, more power. We add a layer of tension and struggle on top of the initial pain, making it heavier and more difficult to bear. Finally, there is neutral feeling, Adukkhama Sukha Vedana. This is, in fact, the vast majority of our experience. It is the feeling of your hand resting by your side, the sound of the air conditioner's hum, the sensation of your clothes against your skin. It is neither particularly pleasant nor unpleasant. And what is our automatic reaction to neutral feeling? We ignore it. Our mind becomes dull. We space out. We fall into the fog of mindlessness. We miss most of our lives because we have trained ourselves only to pay attention to the dramatic highs and lows, while completely overlooking the vast, quiet landscape in between. This unconscious chain of reaction, clinging to the pleasant, resisting the unpleasant, and ignoring the neutral, is happening all day long, beneath the surface of our awareness. It is the source of the second arrow, an unpleasant feeling arises. And that is the first arrow. Our immediate resistance and the story we build around it. This is awful. I can't stand it is the second arrow we shoot into ourselves. A pleasant feeling arises. A moment of joy. That is a gift. But our immediate craving for it to last forever, and the anxiety that it might not, is the second arrow. The disappointment when it fades is the pain of that arrow landing. Mindfulness of feelings is the practice of breaking this chain. It is the art of learning to feel the first arrow without picking up the bow and shooting the second. So how do we practice this? Especially as we lie here, in the quiet of the night. When feelings can seem so powerful, the practice is one of gentle, courageous, and compassionate observation. When a feeling arises, perhaps a wave of sadness, a flicker of anxiety, a sense of peace, the first step is simply to recognize its presence, to notice, something is here. The second step is to give it a soft mental label. Naming the feeling is a profoundly powerful act. When you say in your mind, "This is anxiety," or "I am aware of a feeling of peace," you are performing a crucial bit of inner alchemy. You are changing your relationship to the feeling. It is no longer "I am anxious," a statement of identity which can feel overwhelming and solid. It becomes, "I am aware of anxiety," a statement of observation. This creates a space between you, the observer, and the feeling that is being observed. In that space, there is freedom. You are the sky, and the feeling is just a passing cloud. The third step is to investigate the feeling with kindness. Where do you feel this emotion in your body? Does anxiety have a location? Perhaps it's a tightness in the chest, a fluttering in the stomach, a heat in the face. Does sadness have a texture? Perhaps it's a heaviness in the limbs, a lump in the throat. By grounding the emotion in its raw physical sensations, you move out of the endlessly complex story of the mind and into the simple, direct reality of the body. You are no longer lost in why you are anxious. You are simply present with the raw energy of anxiety itself. The final and most courageous step is to allow the feeling to be there. This is the opposite of our habitual reaction. Instead of resisting the unpleasant feeling or clinging to the pleasant one, we practice letting it be. We give it permission to exist. We create a welcoming, hospitable space in our awareness for any feeling that arises. Imagine holding a small, frightened bird in your open hands. If you clench your fist around it to keep it, you will crush it. If you try to push it away, it will struggle and panic. The practice is to hold it with an open, gentle, and steady hand, allowing it to be there, to tremble, and, in its own time, to fly away when it is ready. This is how we must learn to hold our own feelings. This radical acceptance is not passive resignation. It is an act of profound strength and self-compassion. It is the understanding that fighting with our own inner weather is an exhausting and futile battle. Wisdom lies in learning to be a calm, spacious, and resilient harbor, capable of holding any weather that passes through. As you lie here tonight, you might take a moment to reflect on the feelings of your day. Perhaps there was a moment of joy, a moment of frustration, a moment of boredom, a moment of deep love. Can you look back on these emotional waves not with judgment or regret, but with a gentle, compassionate interest? Can you see how each one arose, lingered for a while, and then gave way to something else? all on its own. Seeing this pattern in the past gives us the confidence to trust it in the present. The feeling that is with you right now, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, is not a permanent fixture. It is a visitor. It is a passing cloud. It is a wave on the great ocean of your being. Our practice is not to stop the waves, for that is impossible. Our practice is to learn how to surf. By developing this capacity to be with our feelings, we build an unshakable, emotional resilience. We are no longer a tiny boat tossed about by every passing mood. We become the deep, quiet ocean itself, aware of the changing surface, but resting in our own vast and imperturbable depth. Now, we might ask, what is it that so often whips these waves into a frenzy? What generates the stories that we attach to our feelings? The answer lies in the ceaseless activity of the mind itself. And so, our journey must now take us one step deeper. From the weather to the sky, from the feelings to the very process of thought that so often creates them, we will turn our mindful gaze to the third foundation, the mind itself. We have anchored ourselves in the solid ground of the body, learning to be present with its living reality. From that stable shore, we have learned to watch the changing weather of our feelings, developing the grace to ride their waves without being capsized. Our journey of self-understanding now takes us to the deepest and most subtle of the four foundations of mindfulness. We move our attention from the weather to the vast, open sky in which it all happens. We turn our gaze towards the mind itself, the very source of the ceaseless stream of consciousness that shapes our world. This practice is known as cittanupassana, mindfulness of the mind, and it is here that we can find the key to a most profound and unshakable freedom. For most of us, for most of our lives, we live in a state of complete fusion with our thoughts. We don't experience ourselves as having thoughts. We experience ourselves as being our thoughts. The voice in our head, that incessant inner narrator that is constantly judging, commenting, worrying, planning, and reminiscing. We take this voice to be the very core of our identity. We believe its every word implicitly. When this inner voice says, "You handled that badly," "You are a failure," a wave of shame washes over us. When it whispers, "What if that terrible thing happens tomorrow?" our body floods with the cortisol of anxiety. When it grumbles, "This isn't fair. I deserve better," we feel the heat of resentment. We live like puppets on a string, and our own unexamined, automatic thoughts are the puppeteer, pulling us through a range of painful emotions. Day and night, this is the most subtle and powerful form of imprisonment, to be ruled by a tyrant within our own mind that we don't even recognize as separate from ourselves. The practice of mindfulness of mind is a declaration of independence. It is the courageous act of stepping back and observing the thinker. The central metaphor for this practice is simple and beautiful. Your awareness, your true nature, is like a vast, open, clear blue sky. It is inherently spacious, peaceful, and untouched. Your thoughts are like clouds that drift through this sky. Some days the sky is filled with dark, heavy, stormy clouds of anger or despair. On other days, it is home to light, fluffy, white clouds of joy and peace. And on some days, it is almost entirely clear. The clouds are always changing, always moving, but the sky remains. The sky is never damaged by the storm. The sky does not cling to the pretty clouds. It simply allows them all to come and to go. For all our lives, we have mistaken ourselves for the clouds, getting tossed about by every passing weather pattern. The practice is to realize that you are the sky. So how do we do this? How do we shift our identity from the fleeting clouds to the boundless sky? We begin by watching as you lie here. Simply notice the thoughts as they drift through your mind. There is no need to do anything about them. You do not need to judge them as good or bad. You do not need to analyze where they came from. You do not need to follow them down their rabbit holes. And most importantly, you do not have to believe they are true. Your only task is to notice their arising and their passing. A powerful technique to aid this observation is to give your thoughts a gentle label. As a thought about your to-do list for tomorrow appears, you can simply note in your mind, planning. When a memory of something you said earlier today arises, you can note, remembering. When the inner critic offers its opinion, you can note, judging. When a fearful scenario about the future plays out, you can note, worrying. This simple act of labeling does something miraculous. It objectifies the thought. It takes it from being a subjective truth to being an objective mental event. It's no longer me. It's just a pattern of worrying that the mind is doing. This creates a gap, a space, and in that space, we find our freedom. Another powerful way to practice this, especially with very sticky or painful thoughts, is to consciously reframe them. When the thought "I am not good enough" arises, instead of wrestling with it, you can practice saying to yourself, "I am having the thought that I am not good enough." Can you feel the difference? The first statement, "I am not good enough," is a verdict. It feels heavy, solid, and true. The second statement, "I am having the thought that I am not good enough," is an observation. It reports on a mental event. It recognizes the thought as a transient piece of mental weather, not as a definitive statement of your identity. This simple shift in language can be life-changing. It is the difference between being imprisoned by a thought and being the wise, compassionate witness of it. Imagine your constant stream of thoughts is like a great, powerful waterfall. For most of our lives, we have been standing directly underneath it, getting pummeled and drenched by the chaotic, relentless cascade. We are disoriented. We can't see clearly. We are deafened by the roar. All our energy is spent just trying to keep our head above water. We are so caught up in the deluge that we don't even realize we have a choice. The practice of mindfulness of mind is the simple, revolutionary act of taking one step to the side. We move out from under the pounding water and find a quiet, dry spot on the riverbank. From here, on this bank of calm awareness, we can still see the waterfall. We can observe its immense power and energy. We can notice the way the light refracts in the mist. We can appreciate its wild beauty without being battered and controlled by it. We are no longer identified with the water. We are the peaceful observer watching its ceaseless flow. When we rest on this riverbank for a while, we begin to notice things. We see the same logs of old resentments tumbling by. Again and again, we notice the recurring patterns of anxious thoughts that get churned up whenever the current gets strong. We see the familiar, self-critical stories appearing like foam on the surface. By seeing these patterns repeat, day after day, we stop taking them so personally. We realize they are not personal failings, but deeply ingrained, impersonal mental habits, like grooves worn into the riverbed of our mind over many years. This is the peace that this practice offers. True inner stillness is not the creation of a completely empty mind, a state without thought. That is impossible. True stillness is the state of a mind that is no longer disturbed by the coming and going of its thoughts. You have become the sky, allowing the clouds to pass. You have become the silent witness on the riverbank. And as you rest here, watching this stream of consciousness flow by, you begin to notice all the heavy baggage it has been carrying, the old beliefs, the painful memories, the burdens you have been shouldering for years. This clear seeing naturally gives rise to the next crucial step in our journey of liberation. It raises the question, now that I can see all this baggage, how do I learn to set it down? This is the path to the wisdom of letting go. We have journeyed inward, from the body to the feelings, and finally to the mind itself. We have sat on the riverbank of our awareness and have watched the ceaseless stream of consciousness flow by. In doing so, we have become intimate with the contents of our own mind, and we may have been surprised, or even dismayed, to see just how much heavy baggage is being carried along in that current. We see old logs of regret, tangled nets of resentment, sharp stones of self-criticism, and the murky silt of anxiety about the future. For years, for decades, we have been carrying all of this, often without even realizing the weight of our burden. The diligent striving of Appamada now brings us to a crucial, liberating question. Must we continue to carry all of this? The answer that echoes through the Buddha's teachings is a compassionate and resounding no. The highest form of spiritual effort is not in grasping, but in releasing. The greatest wisdom lies in learning the gentle art of letting go. This may sound simple, but it is one of the most profound and counterintuitive practices we can undertake, because our minds are conditioned to do the exact opposite. We are conditioned to cling, to hold on, to control. So what is it that we must learn to release? We begin by letting go of the past. So much of our mental energy is spent in the graveyard of history. We endlessly replay our mistakes, cringing at embarrassing moments, wishing we had said or done something different, or we nurse old grievances, keeping the wounds fresh by constantly picking at the scabs of memory. Even our happy memories can become a trap, as we compare the vibrant past to a less satisfying present. To practice letting go of the past does not mean inducing amnesia. It means accepting, with profound courage, that the past is over and cannot be changed. It is a memory, a ghost, and we can choose to stop giving it the power to haunt our present moment. It is the wisdom to stop driving our life forward while staring only in the rearview mirror. Next, we learn to let go of our obsessive grip on the future. Our minds are perpetual planning machines, but they are also tireless anxiety generators. We spend countless hours worrying about what might happen, rehearsing for potential disasters, and fantasizing about perfect outcomes. This constant projection into the future robs us of the only time we ever truly have right now. Letting go of the future does not mean abandoning our goals or failing to plan. It means releasing our emotional attachment to a specific, fixed outcome. It means we do our best in the present, and then we release the results, trusting that we have the inner resources to meet whatever comes. It is the deep, relaxing exhale of accepting that uncertainty is a fundamental part of life, and that peace can be found right here, in the midst of it. We must also learn to let go of the rigid ideas we hold about ourselves and others. We carry around heavy labels, like I am an anxious person, or he is an arrogant person, These labels create a solid, unchanging world, but it is a world of prisons. By holding on to these fixed identities, we deny the truth of anicca, of impermanence. We deny the possibility of change and growth, both for ourselves and for others. Letting go of these identities is a radical act of freedom. It is allowing yourself to be a dynamic process rather than a fixed thing. It is giving others the space to surprise you, to be more than the single story you have created about them. It is crucial to understand what letting go is not. It is not a sign of weakness or apathy. In fact, it is an act of supreme strength and wisdom. It is not indifference. You can care deeply about a situation or a person while still letting go of your need to control them or the outcome. Often, by releasing your anxious grip, you can act with far more clarity and compassion. Letting go is also not passivity or irresponsibility. It is the wisdom of the famous serenity prayer, the courage to change the things you can bow, the serenity to accept the things you cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. It is about applying your energy skillfully, where it can actually make a difference, rather than wasting it by fighting against immovable reality. There is a classic Zen story that illustrates this with perfect clarity. Two monks, one senior and one junior, were on a long walking pilgrimage. Their path led them to a wide, muddy river. On the bank stood a beautiful young woman in fine silk robes, clearly distressed and hesitant to cross for fear of ruining her clothes. Monastic rules were very strict. Monks were forbidden from making physical contact with women. The junior monk stood back, observing the rules. The senior monk, however, simply walked up to the woman, wordlessly lifted her into his arms, carried her across the turbulent river, and set her down gently on the other side. He then bowed slightly and continued his journey. The junior monk was utterly scandalized. He hurried to catch up, his mind a storm of judgment and indignation. For the next several hours, as they walked in silence, he replayed the event over and over. How could he do that? He is supposed to be a master. He broke a fundamental vow. What a terrible example. The inner monologue was relentless, and the weight of his anger and judgment grew heavier with every step. Finally, miles down the road, he could bear it no longer. He burst out, confronting the older monk. How could you do that back there? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman, yet you picked her up and carried her in your arms. The old monk looked at his agitated companion, his eyes filled with a calm, gentle compassion. He smiled softly and said, "Brother, I set that woman down by the river hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story is a profound teaching for all of us as we lie down at night. What are we still carrying? Are we still carrying a harsh word someone said to us this morning? Are we still carrying the frustration from a project that didn't go our way? Are we still carrying a mistake we made last week? Or last year? The event is over. It is on the other side of the river, but we continue to carry it in our minds, allowing its weight to exhaust and poison our present peace. The practice of letting go can be as simple as using your breath. As you lie here, you can dedicate your out-breath to release. With each inhalation, you can acknowledge a thought, a tension, a burden. With each exhalation, you can consciously imagine letting it go, releasing its grip, allowing it to dissolve into the vast space of awareness. The breath becomes a gentle, rhythmic broom, sweeping the mind clean. A particularly powerful form of this practice is forgiveness. To hold a grudge is to carry a hot coal, intending to throw it at someone else. But you are the one who gets burned. Forgiveness is not about condoning a harmful act. It is the wise and selfish decision to set down the hot coal for your own sake. As you rest here, you can bring to mind someone you are holding a resentment towards. You can silently, in your own heart, wish them well and offer them your forgiveness. Not for them, but for you. Even more powerfully, you can offer this same forgiveness to yourself. You can let go of the demand for perfection and embrace yourself with the same compassion you would offer a dear friend. This diligent work of letting go, of forgiving, of releasing, is the act of clearing the soil of your inner garden. You are removing the heavy stones, pulling out the old, dead roots, and breaking up the compacted earth. This does not leave behind an empty, sterile void. On the contrary, it creates a rich, aerated, and fertile ground, our welcoming space. And into this beautifully prepared space, we can now begin to consciously plant the most precious seeds of all, starting with the boundless, life-affirming seed of compassion. Having diligently cleared the soil of our inner garden, having removed the heavy stones of past regrets and future anxieties, having practiced the profound and liberating wisdom of letting go, we are now left with a space. It is a space of possibility, a fertile ground ready to receive new seeds. The practice of appamada, of heedful diligence, is not merely about emptying. It is also about consciously filling. The first and most precious seed we are invited to plant in this newly prepared ground is the seed of karuna, the seed of compassion. In our everyday language, compassion is often confused with pity or simple sadness. But in the language of the heart, karuna is something far more active, courageous, and profound. It is the trembling of the heart in response to suffering, whether our own or that of another. It is not a passive feeling of sorrow from a safe distance. It is the engaged, empathetic resonance with pain, coupled with the sincere, powerful wish for that pain to be alleviated. It is the quality that motivated the Buddha to teach for 45 years after his own enlightenment. It is the engine of all true spiritual growth, for it is the force that breaks down the walls of the separate self and connects us to the great, shared heart of all existence. For many of us, raised in cultures that prize strength and self-reliance, the journey of compassion begins in a surprising place with ourselves. We often find it far easier to offer kindness and understanding to a friend who is struggling than to offer that same kindness to ourselves. When we make a mistake, when we feel weak or broken, our first response is often that of the harsh inner critic, the voice of judgment and shame. We shoot the second, third, and fourth arrows into ourselves without mercy. But the Buddha taught that a heart that cannot hold its own suffering with tenderness cannot truly hold the suffering of others in a wise and sustainable way. Our compassion for others, if not rooted in self-compassion, can become fragile, tinged with a subtle sense of superiority, or can lead to burnout and exhaustion. Therefore, the diligent cultivation of karuna begins at home, with your own heart, your own pain. As you lie here tonight, you can practice this gentle art. Perhaps you recall a moment from the day when you felt inadequate or anxious, or when you acted in a way you now regret. The habitual response is to cringe, to judge, to turn away from that feeling. The practice of self-compassion invites you to do the opposite. You can place a hand gently on your heart and acknowledge the reality of your own dukkha. You can say to yourself, silently, the three classic phrases of self-compassion. This is a moment of suffering. This is the mindful recognition, the turning towards the truth without drama. Suffering is a part of life. This is the acknowledgement of our shared humanity, the realization that our struggles do not make us flawed, but connect us to everyone who has ever lived. And finally, may I be kind to myself in this moment. This is the active offering of tenderness, the choice to soothe rather than to scold. This simple practice, repeated over time, can fundamentally transform your relationship with yourself, creating an inner environment of safety and warmth. Once we have established this foundation of kindness for our own being, we can begin to extend the circle of compassion outward. Imagine it like ripples spreading from a stone dropped in a still pond. We start with those for whom it is easy to feel compassion, our beloved friends, our family members, our pets. Bring one of them to mind now. Picture them clearly, and instead of focusing only on their strengths, allow yourself to acknowledge their struggles, their burdens, their hidden pains and fears. Holding that awareness of their dukkha, you can then silently offer them the wish of karuna. May you be free from your suffering. May you find peace. Feel the sincerity of that wish in your own heart. Next, we widen the circle. Bring to mind a neutral person, someone you encountered today, but have no strong feelings about the person who checked out your groceries. A colleague you barely know, someone you passed on the street. Remind yourself that this person, just like you, has a complex life filled with their own hopes, dreams, and secret sorrows. Behind their neutral exterior is a human heart that knows pain, and so you extend the same wish to them. May you be free from your suffering. In this simple act, a stranger is transformed from an object in your landscape into a fellow subject, a fellow suffering being. The illusion of separation begins to dissolve. The most challenging and transformative practice is to extend the circle of compassion to include a difficult person, someone who has hurt you or with whom you have a contentious relationship. This is not about condoning their harmful actions or forcing a superficial reconciliation. It is an internal practice for your own benefit. The practice is to try, for just a moment, to see past your anger and resentment, and to view this person as a suffering being. Try to sense the ignorance, the fear, or the pain that might be driving their skillful actions. Unhappy people are the ones who cause others to be unhappy. From this deeper perspective, you can, perhaps, gently offer the wish. May you be free from the deep suffering that causes you to act in these harmful ways. May you too find peace. This practice is the ultimate antidote to the poison of hatred. It is the act of freeing yourself from the prison of your own resentment. The Buddha himself was the living embodiment of this active, hands-on compassion. There is a moving story of a time when he was walking through the monastery and came upon a monk who was terribly ill with dysentery. The monk was lying in his own filth, his body covered in sores, and he was so foul-smelling and unpleasant to be near that his brother monks had completely abandoned him. He was alone, in agony. Upon seeing this, the Buddha did not call for others. He did not lecture. He went straight to the sick monk. He asked Ananda to fetch some water. And then the Buddha himself, the enlightened one, gently began to wash the sick monk's body. cleaning his sores with his own hands. He changed the monk's soiled robes and bedding, and made him comfortable. When the other monks learned what was happening, they gathered around, filled with shame. The Buddha then looked at them and delivered a teaching that has resonated through the ages. He said, "Monks, you have no mother and no father here to care for you. If you do not care for one another, then who else will? Let this be known: whoever nurses and attends to the sick is, in truth, nursing and attending to me." This story shows that karuna is not a lofty, abstract ideal. It is the grit and grace of showing up for suffering, of being willing to get your hands dirty. It is the recognition that in the suffering of another, we meet our own shared humanity. As we plant this seed of compassion in our inner garden, it acts as a powerful medicine. It is the direct antidote to anger, judgment, and cruelty. It dissolves the ice of jealousy and the armor of arrogance. It softens a heart that has become hard and fearful, and allows us to feel a sense of profound connection to the world. It is the understanding that our own happiness is inextricably linked to the happiness of others. But this wish for others to be free from suffering has a radiant and beautiful twin. It is the wish for them to be happy. This is the practice of loving kindness, of metta. And it is to this joyful and boundless quality that our journey will now turn. In the fertile ground of our mind, cleared by the wisdom of letting go, we have planted the precious seed of karuna, compassion, the heartfelt wish for all beings to be free from their suffering. This practice softens our heart and connects us to the shared vulnerability of all life. Now, we turn to its radiant twin sister, a quality that is like the gentle, warming sun to compassion's healing rain. This is the practice of metta, a Pali word that translates as loving kindness, unconditional friendliness, or boundless goodwill. If compassion is the heart's response to pain, metta is the heart's response to the potential for happiness. It is the active, joyful, and unconditional wish for all beings, without exception, to be well, to be happy, and to be at peace. Metta is not the transactional, preferential love that we usually experience. It is not a love that says, "I will love you if you love me back," or "I love my friends but not my enemies." Metta is like the sun. The sun does not decide which flowers are worthy of its warmth. It does not withhold its light from the weeds. It shines its radiance equally on everything and everyone, without judgment or condition. To practice metta is to learn how to become a sun in our own inner world, radiating a steady and unconditional warmth from the core of our being. It is a skill that can be cultivated, a mental muscle that grows stronger with practice, and it is one of the perfect antidotes to fear, loneliness, and ill will. Like compassion, the practice of metta begins at home, with yourself. This is often the most challenging and therefore the most essential step for many of us. It is far easier to wish happiness for others than it is to offer it to ourselves. The voice of the inner critic is loud, reminding us of our faults and convincing us that we are unworthy of our own kindness. But to try and offer loving kindness to others without first offering it to ourselves is like trying to pour from an empty cup. It is unsustainable. Therefore, the diligent cultivation of metta is first and foremost an act of radical self-care, a way of filling our own vessel so that our goodwill can naturally overflow to others. As you lie here, preparing for rest. I invite you to practice this now. You might wish to place a hand gently over the center of your chest, a gesture of kindness towards your own heart, and then, silently, like a gentle whisper in your mind, you can begin to offer yourself the classic phrases of metta. Let the words be soft. Let your intention be kind. Repeat them slowly. May I be safe. May I be happy. May I be healthy. May I live my life with ease. As you repeat these phrases, don't worry if you don't feel a sudden gush of emotion. The practice is not about forcing a feeling. It is about sincerely setting an intention. You are planting the seeds of kindness in the garden of your own heart. With each repetition, you are watering that seed. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be happy and content. May I be healthy in body and mind. May I meet the challenges of life with ease. This is a profound act of healing, a way of making peace with yourself at the end of the day. Once you have spent some time offering this kindness to yourself, generating a sense of warmth and peace, you can begin to radiate it outward. The next step is to bring to mind a benefactor or a dear friend. Picture someone for whom you feel easy, uncomplicated gratitude and affection. It could be a family member, a mentor, a pet. Hold their image in your mind's eye, and with the same sincerity, begin to offer them the phrases of metta. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Feel the natural flow of your heart's goodwill towards this beloved being. Allow the feeling of metta to grow strong and steady. Next, in an act that gently stretches the boundaries of the heart, bring to mind a neutral person, someone you saw today, but about whom you have no strong feelings, the person who delivered your mail, the clerk at the bank, a face you passed on the street. See them in your mind and recognize that this person, just like you, wishes to be happy and to avoid suffering. They have their own struggles and their own joys, and so you offer them the exact same phrases. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. In this moment, a person who was merely a part of the background scenery of your life becomes a fellow human being, connected to you by this shared, fundamental wish for well-being. The walls of indifference begin to soften. The great test of the heart, the practice that truly develops a boundless love, is to then bring to mind a difficult person, someone who has caused you pain, or with whom you regularly feel conflict. This is not a practice of forcing yourself to like them or condone their actions. It is a practice for your own freedom. You recognize that holding on to anger and hatred is a poison that harms you most of all. So, as best as you can, you try to offer them some form of this wish. Perhaps you cannot yet wish them happiness, and that is okay. You might start with, may you be free from your own anger, or simply, may your heart find peace. You do this not for them, but to cleanse your own heart of negativity, to release yourself from the burden of ill will. Finally, you let go of all specific individuals. You imagine this light of loving kindness, this warmth from your heart, radiating out in all directions, to the front, to the back, to the left and to the right, above and below. You extend it to all beings in your home, your neighborhood, your city, your country, and across the entire world. you extend it to friends and to enemies, to humans and to animals, to all creatures, great and small, seen and unseen. May all beings be safe. May all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. May all beings live with ease. In this moment, your heart transcends its personal boundaries and touches the universal. You rest in a state of boundless, benevolent connection with all of life. The Buddha taught that metta is not a passive, sentimental feeling, but a powerful, protective force. There is a famous story of his jealous cousin, Devadatta, who plotted to assassinate him. Devadatta's plan was to use the fierce royal elephant, Nalagiri. He had the elephant's handlers feed it large amounts of alcohol until it was in a state of mad, uncontrollable rage. They then unleashed the elephant onto the narrow street where the Buddha was calmly walking, receiving alms, as Nalagiri charged. Trumpeting with fury, people screamed and fled in terror. The Buddha's loyal attendant, Ananda, in a panic, tried to shield the Buddha with his own body, but the Buddha gently moved him aside and told him not to be afraid. He stood his ground, calm and serene, as the raging beast thundered towards him. He did not prepare to fight. He did not run. He simply opened his heart and radiated a powerful, concentrated beam of pure, loving kindness directly at the crazed animal. The ancient texts say that as Nalagiri entered this invisible field of metta, a change came over it. Its furious charge began to slow. The rage in its eyes softened. Its drunken madness subsided. It walked peacefully to the Buddha's feet, knelt down, and allowed the Blessed One to gently stroke its forehead. This story illustrates the immense, transformative power of a mind filled with goodwill. It can tame the fiercest demons, both outside us and, more importantly, within us. As you settle into sleep tonight, let this practice be your gentle lullaby. Metta is the ultimate antidote to the feelings of loneliness and separation that can so often visit us in the quiet of the night. It is a profound remembrance that we are not isolated islands, but are inextricably connected in a vast web of being, all sharing the same fundamental desire to be happy. With a heart softened by compassion and warmed by loving kindness, our inner garden becomes a true sanctuary. But even the most beautiful garden is enhanced by a peaceful atmosphere, an environment free from harsh winds and noise. To allow these beautiful qualities of the heart to truly take root and deepen, we must learn to appreciate and cultivate the profound value of silence. We have tended so carefully to our inner garden. We have cleared the ground by letting go of the burdens of the past and future. We have planted the precious seeds of compassion, karuna, to soften the soil, and we have nurtured them with the warm, life-giving sun of loving kindness, metta. Our inner world is becoming a sanctuary, a place of beauty and peace. Now, to allow these beautiful qualities to truly deepen their roots and flourish, we must provide the one essential element that all gardens need to thrive: a gentle and nourishing atmosphere. We must learn to value and cultivate the profound wisdom of silence. In our modern world, true silence is a rare and endangered species. We are surrounded by a culture of noise. There is, of course, the literal, outer noise, the constant hum of traffic, the drone of televisions in public spaces, the endless soundtrack of music in shops and cafes. Our ears are rarely given a moment's rest, but even more pervasive is the inner noise we voluntarily invite into our minds. We fill every spare moment, every silent gap, with a stream of digital input. We listen to podcasts while we do the dishes. We scroll through videos while we wait in line. We have the news playing in the background while we eat. We have become a society that is deeply uncomfortable with, and even fearful of, silence. Why do we fear it so? We fear silence because it is in the absence of external distraction that we are finally forced to meet ourselves. When the music stops and the screens go dark, the unresolved conversations, the suppressed anxieties, the lonely feelings, and the quiet regrets we have been successfully outrunning all day finally have a chance to catch up to us. Silence creates a space, and we are terrified of what might emerge from that space to greet us. And so, we keep the noise going. We keep stirring the waters of our mind with the stick of constant stimulation, hoping that if the water is murky enough, we won't have to see what lies at the bottom. We have come to believe that silence is an emptiness to be filled, rather than a fullness to be discovered. The diligent path of Appamada invites us to a radical re-evaluation of silence. It suggests that the very things we are running from are, in fact, the things that hold the key to our healing. The anxiety that arises in the quiet is precisely what needs the touch of our compassion. The loneliness that surfaces is exactly what needs to be held in the warmth of our self-acceptance. Silence does not create these difficult states. It simply provides the pristine, uncluttered space in which they can finally be seen, heard, and healed. Silence is the great clarifier. It is the vast, quiet listening room where the subtle whispers of our own intuition, the quiet voice of our own deepest wisdom, can finally be heard above the clamor of the ego and the noise of the world. The seeds of compassion and loving kindness need this quiet to germinate. Safe from the harsh winds of distraction, silence is not empty. It is the fertile ground of receptivity. Imagine your mind is a deep lake. For most of your life, the winds of the world and the churning of your own restless activity have kept its surface in a constant state of turbulence. The waters are choppy and murky. The mud from the bottom is constantly being stirred up, making it impossible to see through the water. In this state, the lake cannot reflect anything with clarity. It cannot reflect the sky, the moon, or the stars. All it can reflect is its own confusion. This murky, agitated state is the mind lost in noise. The practice of cultivating silence is the simple, profound decision to stop stirring the lake. It is the act of putting down the stick of constant distraction. It is allowing the winds to die down. At first, nothing much seems to happen. The water is still cloudy. The mud is still suspended. This is that initial, uncomfortable phase of silence, where all the agitated thoughts and feelings are still swirling with their own momentum. It requires patience. We must simply wait, with gentle, non-judgmental attention. But if we are patient, if we allow the lake of the mind to simply be, a natural process of purification begins. Slowly, gracefully, the particles of mud begin to settle. The water begins to clear. The turbulence subsides. And eventually, if we allow the stillness to deepen, the surface of the lake can become perfectly calm, as smooth and clear as a flawless mirror. And now, in this state of profound stillness, the lake can perfectly reflect everything. It reflects the vast, open blue of the daytime sky. It reflects the soft, mysterious light of the moon and the brilliant, distant fire of the stars. The mind that has become still can now reflect the truth of reality, without distortion. This is the clarifying power of silence. We can actively cultivate this profound quality in our lives. Especially at the end of the day, we can begin to see our bedroom not merely as a place to sleep, but as a sanctuary of silence. This means making a conscious choice at the threshold of the room to leave the noise of the world behind. It might mean committing to putting your phone away for the last hour before you go to sleep, turning off the television, and choosing instead to read a physical book, or simply to sit quietly. This act creates a sacred boundary, signaling to your mind that it is time to transition from the world of doing to the world of being. You can practice what is sometimes called noble silence, which is not just the absence of speaking, but the conscious refraining from all forms of distraction. For 10 or 15 minutes, you can simply lie in your bed and be with yourself in the quiet. There is no agenda, no task to complete. The only practice is to be present with the silence, and as you do, you can begin to listen to the silence. You will discover that silence is not a pure absence. It is rich and layered. You might hear the subtle hum of your house, the distant whisper of traffic, the sound of your own heartbeat, the delicate music of your own breathing. The silence itself becomes the object of your meditation, a vast and soothing presence that holds you. This embrace of silence is a profound act of self-love. It is the creation of the perfect inner climate for the seeds of wisdom and compassion to grow. It allows the turbulent waters of our mind to settle, revealing a clarity we may not have known was possible. But as the waters clear, we are sometimes left face to face with the creatures that dwell in the silent depths, our most primal, deeply held fears. In the bright, quiet clarity of a still mind, these fears have nowhere left to hide, and so our diligent practice must now give us the courage to turn and meet them, not with aggression, but with the same mindful, compassionate attention we have been cultivating all along. We have journeyed into the sanctuary of silence, allowing the turbulent waters of the mind to settle and clear. It is a space of profound peace and potential. Yet, as the mud settles and the water clarifies, we may begin to perceive the shapes of things that live in the very depths of the lake, things that were previously obscured by the constant motion. In the stillness of the night, in the quiet of our own heart, we come face to face with our most primal and powerful emotion, fear. The darkness can become a screen upon which we project our deepest anxieties, the fear of sickness, the fear of loss, the fear of failure, the fear of loneliness, and the great, underlying fear of our own mortality. For many of us, the bed can become a stage where these fears perform their most terrifying acts, stealing our peace and our rest. The diligent, the heedful path of Appamada does not ask us to run from these fears. It offers us a lantern and a guide, showing us how to turn and meet them with wisdom and courage. To work with fear, we must first understand its anatomy. Where does it come from? At its root, most of our psychological fear arises from one fundamental source: our deep, instinctual attachment to the idea of a solid, permanent, and independent self. We construct an identity, a story of me, and we spend our lives defending this fragile fortress. Fear is the alarm system that goes off whenever this fortress is threatened. We fear failure because it threatens our story of being a competent person. We fear criticism because it threatens our story of being a likable person. We fear sickness and death because they present the ultimate, undeniable threat to the ego's claim on permanence and control. Fear is the shadow cast by a self that believes it is solid and forever. The teachings on impermanence, anicca, and not self, anatta, are the light that, when shone directly, causes this shadow to shrink. When fear arises, it manifests in two distinct ways, like the two arrows we spoke of earlier. First, there is the raw, physical energy of fear, the first arrow. This is the tightening in the chest, the racing of the heart, the knot in the stomach, the sudden cold sweat. These are pure, impersonal bodily sensations. But we rarely stop there. Almost instantaneously, we fire the second arrow. We weave a catastrophic story around these sensations. The mind begins to race. What is this feeling? It must mean something terrible is wrong. I can't handle this. This feeling will never go away. My life is falling apart. It is this story, this second arrow, that transforms the raw energy of fear into the prolonged suffering of terror and anxiety. The practice of mindful diligence is learning to feel the first arrow, the raw sensations, without believing or fueling the story of the second arrow. So, when fear visits you in the quiet of the night, here is how you can practice. The first moment you recognize its presence, the first and most important step is not to panic or resist. It is simply to acknowledge, fear is here. This is a moment of fear. Then, immediately, bring your awareness back to your anchor, the body. Feel the solid ground of the bed beneath you. Feel the weight of the blanket upon you. Feel the simple, physical reality of your hands resting by your sides. This act of grounding prevents the mind from being immediately hijacked by the terrifying story. You are reminding yourself that in this present moment, you are safe in your bed. The second step is to gently and curiously investigate the physical sensations of the fear without judgment. Move your awareness to the part of your body where the fear feels most intense. Is it in your throat, your chest, your stomach? And then, like a gentle scientist, simply observe its qualities. Is the sensation hot or cold? Is it vibrating? Or is it a solid, heavy knot? Does it have sharp edges? Or is it diffuse? You are not trying to get rid of the feeling. You are simply getting to know it, to become intimate with it, by shifting your focus from the scary story about the fear to the raw, neutral sensations of the fear. You strip it of much of its power. It ceases to be a monster and becomes just a cluster of interesting, impersonal energies. The third step is to breathe with the fear. Our instinct is to hold our breath, or to breathe in a very shallow way when we are afraid, which only signals more danger to our nervous system. The mindful practice is to consciously soften the belly and allow the breath to be a little deeper, a little slower. You can imagine your breath flowing into and around the area of tightness in your body, as if you are making space for the feeling, holding it in a warm, compassionaci, embrace. This sends a powerful message of safety and acceptance throughout your entire being, calming the physiological storm. Finally, when you feel more grounded and stable, you can gently question the story that the mind is telling. You can look at the catastrophic thought and ask with a kind curiosity, is this thought absolutely 100% true? What is a different perhaps more compassionate way of seeing this situation. You are not trying to aggressively argue with your fear. You are simply introducing a gentle ray of wisdom, a différente perspective, into the darkness. You are becoming a friend to yourself in a moment of distress. The story of the fearsome murderer, Angulimala, is a powerful testament to the power of meeting terror with fearless presence. Angulimala was the most feared man in the kingdom. He was a ruthless killer who had murdered so many people that he wore a garland made of their fingers, which is what his name meant. One day, the Buddha started walking calmly down the road that led into Angulimala's forest. The local villagers, terrified, ran to warn him, begging him not to go. The Buddha simply smiled and continued on his way. Angulimala saw the lone monk approaching and was delighted. He grabbed his sword and shield and began to run after him. But a strange miracle occurred. Although the Buddha was only walking at a normal pace, Angulimala, running with all his might, found that he could not catch up. He was a strong man, but he could not close the distance. Exhausted, frustrated, and bewildered, he finally shouted, "Stop! Monk, stand still!" The Buddha, without breaking his stride, replied over his shoulder, "I have stopped. Angulimala, it is you who have not stopped." This cryptic statement shattered Angulimala's world. "What do you mean?" he yelled. The Buddha turned to face him, his presence radiating an unshakable calm and a profound compassion. He said, "I have stopped forever from harming any living being. You are still running, driven by violence and rage. That is why you have not stopped." In that moment, standing in the presence of the Buddha's utter fearlessness and boundless loving kindness, the entire edifice of Angulimala's rage, hatred, and cruelty crumbled into dust. He was not defeated by force, but was completely disarmed by a peace he had never known was possible. He threw down his garland of fingers, cast away his sword, and bowed at the Buddha's feet, begging to be accepted as a disciple, and he was transformed. This story teaches us that we do not overcome fear by running from it, or by meeting it with aggression. We overcome it by cultivating an inner state of unshakable, compassionate presence. When we practice meeting our own inner fears with this mindful diligence, we become our own Buddha. We learn to stand our ground, to breathe, and to radiate a kindness that can tame even our most terrifying inner demons. This practice of taking responsibility for our own inner state, of discovering our own innate capacity for courage and peace, is the ultimate expression of empowerment. It is the deep and liberating realization that we do not need to wait for anyone else to save us. The light we are searching for is already within. We have journeyed together into the silent depths of the mind, and we have found the courage to meet the fears that dwell there. We have done this not by relying on an external force, but by cultivating our own inner resources of mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom. This very process, this act of turning inward to find our own strength, lies at the absolute heart of the Buddha's teaching. It is the ultimate expression of empowerment. His final words, "Appamadena sampadita," strive on with heedfulness, were not the command of a divine king demanding obedience. They were the parting words of a trusted guide, turning to his companions and telling them, with his last breath, that they had everything they needed to complete the journey on their own. Shortly before he passed away, as his beloved attendant Ananda was weeping, The Buddha offered another profound instruction that illuminates his final words. He said, "Ananda, be an island unto yourselves. Be a refuge unto yourselves. Seek no other refuge. Let the Dharma, the truth, be your island and your refuge." Consider the power of this statement. He was the most revered teacher of his age, to looked upon by his followers as the supreme guide, and in his final moments, he did not appoint a successor. He did not establish a rigid hierarchy of authority. He did not ask for perpetual devotion. Instead, he pointed the finger of authority back at each individual. He essentially said, "The safety you seek is within you. The solid ground you search for is your own cultivated mind. Look inward." This principle of self-reliance, of finding the truth for ourselves, is a consistent theme throughout the Buddha's 45 years of teaching. He actively discouraged blind faith. In a famous discourse called the Kalama Sutta, a group of villagers came to him in a state of confusion. They explained that many different teachers passed through their town, each proclaiming that their own doctrine was the only truth and that all others were false. "We are filled with doubt," they said. "How can we know who is telling the truth?" The Buddha's response was extraordinary. He did not say, "Believe me, for I am the enlightened one." Instead, he told them not to believe in anything simply because it is handed down by tradition, because it is cited in a sacred text, because it comes from a respected teacher, or because it seems logical. Instead, he offered a simple, empirical test. He said, "Kalamas, when you know for yourselves that certain things are unwholesome, that they are blameworthy, that they lead to harm and suffering, then you should abandon them. And when you know for yourselves that certain things are wholesome, that they are blameless, that they lead to well-being and happiness, then you should accept them and live by them." This is a radical charter for spiritual freedom. The ultimate arbiter of truth is not an external authority, but the clear, discerning light of your own mindful experience. The diligent striving the Buddha calls for is the diligent application of this honest, experiential inquiry to our own lives. To be an island unto yourself is to build a place of refuge from the turbulent ocean of worldly change and confusion. Our mindfulness of the body is the bedrock of this island. Our compassion and loving kindness are the fertile soil. Our wisdom is the freshwater spring that provides nourishment. To be a light unto yourself is to recognize that you do not need to wait for someone else to illuminate your path. The flame is your own awareness. The diligent practice of appamada is the act of tending to this flame, protecting it from the winds of distraction, and feeding it with the fuel of your attention, so that it burns brightly, lighting the way for yourself and, by its very nature, for others. This is not an act of selfish isolation. An island provides refuge for shipwrecked sailors. A lighthouse guides many ships to safety. By cultivating our own inner refuge, our own inner light, we become a source of peace and stability for the entire world. It is the ultimate act of self-respect, a declaration that you are the primary agent of your own liberation. The Buddha told a stark and pragmatic parable to illustrate the urgency of this self-reliant approach. A man, he said, was shot by an arrow that had been thickly smeared with a deadly poison. His friends and family, in a panic, rushed to find a surgeon to remove it, but the wounded man stopped them. "Wait," he insisted. "Before you pull out this arrow, I need to know the answers to some questions. Who was the man who shot me? What caste was he from? What was his name and his family? Was he tall or short, or of medium height? What village is he from? What kind of wood was the bow made from? What kind of sinew was the bowstring made of? The Buddha then turned to his monks and asked, "What would happen to such a man?" They replied, "Venerable Sir, he would surely die before he ever received the answers to his questions." The Buddha explained that the spiritual life is exactly the same. People come to him and they want to speculate about abstract metaphysical questions. Is the universe eternal? Or is it finite? Does a fully liberated person exist after death or not? He said that he refused to answer these questions because they were not relevant to the core issue. The spiritual life, he said, does not depend on the answer to these questions, whether the universe is eternal or not. There is still birth, old age, sickness, death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. The one and only thing he teaches, he said, is the reality of this suffering and the practical path to its cessation. Our house is on fire. Our body has been struck by a poisoned arrow. Our immediate, urgent task is not to speculate on the origins of the fire or the biography of the archer. Our task is to put out the fire. Our task is to remove the arrow. This parable is a powerful call to focus our diligent effort where it truly matters, on the immediate, practical work of healing our own hearts and minds. The Buddha's final words are a reminder that you are both the patient and the surgeon. You have the wound of suffering, but you also have the capacity, the tools, and the responsibility to treat it. All the practices we have explored mindfulness of body and mind, compassion, loving kindness, letting go. These are the surgical instruments. Your diligent, moment-to-moment attention is the steady hand that wields them. So, as you rest here, feel the profound empowerment in this teaching. You are not being asked to believe in a dogma. You are being invited to undertake an experiment, using your own life as the laboratory. You are not a helpless subject waiting for rescue. You are the hero of your own journey, the source of your own light, the builder of your own refuge. And after all this talk of striving, of effort, of paths and journeys, where does this great adventure ultimately lead? It leads us back to a place of utter and profound simplicity. It leads us away from complexity and towards the only place where life is ever actually lived, the only place where peace can ever be found. It leads us home, to the heart of the present moment. We have journeyed far and wide through the vast and intricate landscape of the Dharma. We have explored the great map of the Eightfold Path. We have tended to our inner garden with compassion and loving kindness. We have faced our deepest fears, and we have discovered the liberating power of self-reliance. It is a rich and profound path, full of concepts, lists, and practices, and a subtle danger can arise here. The mind, in its love for complexity, can turn the path itself into another elaborate project, another future goal. We can begin to think, when I have perfected my understanding of the 3 marks of existence, then I will be at peace. Or, when I can sit in meditation without a single distracting thought, then I will be free. The path to liberation can become just another source of striving, another reason to feel that we are not quite there yet. The Buddha's final, simple instruction: to strive on with heedfulness, with appamada, acts as a powerful corrective to this tendency. It cuts through all the complexity and brings us back to the only place where liberation can ever be found. The only place where life is ever actually lived. It brings us home, to the radical simplicity of the present moment. All of the teachings, all of the practices, all of the wisdom we have explored are not designed to get you to some magical future state of perfection. They are designed to do one thing and one thing only, to help you be fully, completely, and peacefully present with your life. Right here, right now. We live in a culture that worships the future. We are always striving to get somewhere else. We go to school to get a good job. We work at that job to get a promotion. We save money to have a comfortable retirement. We endure the stressful week so we can enjoy the weekend. Peace, happiness, and contentment are always seen as destinations that lie just around the next corner. But as we turn each corner, we find only another corner, and the destination recedes ever further into the distance. This future chasing is the very engine of dukkha, the pervasive dissatisfaction we are seeking to end. The Buddha's path is a radical reversal of this process. It is not about seeking, it is about arriving in the present moment, which is our only true home. The quality of your entire life is nothing more than the quality of your presence in this series of unfolding moments. The purpose of practicing mindfulness of the body is not to have a perfect body in the future, but to feel at home in your body right now. The purpose of practicing loving kindness is not to become a saint someday, but to experience the warmth of a kind heart right now. The purpose of observing your thoughts is not to achieve a blank mind later, but to free yourself from their tyranny right now. The entire path culminates in this very moment. Peace is not a destination, it is a way of traveling. The great Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, told a beautiful story that illustrates this with profound simplicity. He was once staying at a monastery, and a student asked him a question about mindfulness. The student asked, "What is the most important thing to do while you are washing the dishes?" The student was likely expecting a deep, philosophical answer about emptiness or the nature of reality. Thich Nhat Hanh smiled and replied, "While you are washing the dishes, the most important thing is to wash the dishes." He explained that if, while you are standing at the sink, you are thinking only about the delicious cup of tea you will drink afterwards, or you are worrying about the problems of tomorrow, then you are not really alive during the time you are washing the dishes. You are, in his words, sucking the life out of the present moment. The dishes are a reality, and your hands are a reality, and the warm water is a reality. To be present with them is to be alive. He taught that the miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth, to be fully present with each step. By this understanding, washing the dishes can become a sacred meditation. Drinking a cup of tea can be a ceremony of peace. Listening to a loved one can be the deepest practice of connection. And as you lie here tonight, the simple act of being present with your own breath can be the culmination of the entire spiritual path. After all the exploration of complex ideas, it all comes down to this: the gentle, unwavering, moment-to-moment attention we bring to the simple reality of our experience. This is the essence of diligent striving. It is not a tense, forceful, or anxious effort. It is a relaxed, open, and continuous presence. So let us practice this simplicity together. Right now, let go of all the concepts, all the lists, all the things you feel you should be doing or understanding. Allow all of that complexity to dissolve and bring your entire awareness to the simple, humble reality of your own breathing. Let's take just 3 conscious breaths together. For the first breath, as you breathe in, simply know, I am breathing in. And as you breathe out, simply know, I am breathing out. There is nothing else to do, nothing to achieve, just this breath. For the second breath, as you breathe in, follow the sensation of the breath from the moment it enters your body, all the way in. And as you breathe out, follow the sensation of the breath all the way out, until it dissolves. And for the third breath, as you breathe in, become aware of your entire body lying here. And as you breathe out, allow your entire body to soften, to release, to let go just a little more into the support of the bed beneath you. This simple practice, these 3 breaths, if done with full and gentle attention, contains the whole of the path. In it, there is mindfulness of the body. There is right effort and right concentration. There is letting go on the out breath. There is a peaceful stillness. You have arrived. There is nowhere else you need to be. This moment is complete. This breath is enough. Our diligent effort, our appamada, finally reveals itself not as a striving for something we don't have, but as a gentle and continuous returning to the peace that is already here, hidden beneath the noise of our seeking mind. It is a coming home, and yet, within this profound simplicity, there lies a beautiful and subtle paradox. The highest and most skillful form of this gentle, diligent effort can begin to feel less like doing, and more like a kind of graceful surrender. It is this delicate dance between striving and letting go, between effort and ease, that we will explore as we draw closer to the heart of peace. We have arrived at a place of profound simplicity, recognizing that the entirety of the spiritual path culminates in the gentle, unwavering attention we bring to the present moment. The Buddha's final instruction, to strive on with heedfulness, reveals itself not as a command to struggle, but as an invitation to be fully awake to the life that is happening right now. Yet, within this simplicity lies a beautiful and liberating paradox, a subtle shift in understanding that marks the maturation of our practice. It is the journey from effort to ease, from striving to surrender. When we first begin this path, the practice of diligence, of appamada, feels very much like work. It requires conscious willpower and a significant amount of deliberate effort. We have to make ourselves be mindful. We have to remember to notice our breath. When our mind wanders for the 100th time, we must consciously and sometimes forcefully drag it back from its daydreams and worries. When anger flares up, we must apply a deliberate effort to not react, to create a space for a wiser response. This initial stage is like learning any new, complex skill. Think of someone learning to play the cello. At first, every movement is awkward and requires intense concentration. They have to think about how to hold the bow, where to place each finger on the strings, how to create a proper sound. The music they produce might be clumsy and discordant. This phase of conscious, mechanical effort is absolutely necessary. It is how we build the fundamental neural pathways, the basic mental muscles of mindfulness, concentration, and restraint. We cannot skip this stage. But if the student of the cello persists, if they practice their scales with diligence day after day, something remarkable begins to happen. The movements that were once so clumsy and forced become more fluid and natural. They no longer have to think consciously about where to place each finger. Their hands just know. The muscle memory has been ingrained. Their attention is freed from the mechanics of playing and can now be given to the music itself, to the emotion, the phrasing, the soul of the piece. The practice is shifting from a rigid, effortful discipline into a graceful, expressive art. Our spiritual practice evolves in the very same way. As we continue to diligently bring our attention back to the present moment, day after day, night after night, the mental muscles of mindfulness become stronger and more reliable. We no longer have to try so hard. The mind wanders less, and when it does, it returns more quickly and gently, almost on its own. We find ourselves being more patient in a difficult situation without consciously planning to be. We notice a compassionate response arising naturally, where before there would have been judgment. The practice is no longer something we do, but something that is becoming a part of who we are. The rigid discipline blossoms into a natural rhythm. This leads to the highest and most subtle expression of diligent effort, a state that can be described as effortless effort, or what some traditions call non-doing. This does not mean we become passive or lazy. On the contrary, we are more alert and alive than ever before. But the striving is so perfectly aligned with the flow of the present moment that the sense of a separate doer, a struggling ego that is making it happen, begins to dissolve. There is no longer the feeling of I am trying to be mindful of my breath. There is simply the breath being known. There is no longer the thought, I must generate a feeling of loving kindness. There is simply the radiant warmth of loving kindness itself, flowing from a heart that is open. In this state, which modern psychology might call a flow state, our actions arise with a startling spontaneity and wisdom. We say the right thing. We do the right thing, not because we have calculated it in advance, but because our mind is so clear and attuned to reality that the most skillful response simply emerges, unhindered by the fears and desires of the ego. It is the perfect balance between active engagement with the world and a profound acceptance of it. Imagine a master surfer riding a massive, powerful wave. This image is perhaps the perfect metaphor for this state of being. The surfer, first and foremost, cannot control the wave. The wave is a force of nature, like reality itself, with its own immense power and direction. To fight the wave, to resist it, to try and command it to go a different way, would be absolute folly. It would lead only to being instantly overwhelmed and crushed. In this, the surfer is in a state of complete surrender, of total acceptance of the power that is carrying them. They are not fighting reality. However, the surfer is anything but passive. They are not a piece of driftwood being tossed about helplessly. They are actively engaged, using every ounce of their skill, balance, strength, and focus, all of which have been honed through years of diligent practice. They make thousands of subtle, instantaneous adjustments with their body, shifting their weight, guiding their board, responding to the ever-changing face of the wave. Their effort is precise, continuous, and intense, but because it is so perfectly in harmony with the energy of the wave, it looks and feels like a graceful, effortless dance. This is the great paradox in action, the fusion of total surrender and skillful effort. They do not control the wave. but they have mastered the art of riding it. This is the ultimate destination of the Buddha's final instruction. We practice diligently, not to fight the great, uncontrollable waves of life, but to develop the inner balance, strength, and wisdom to ride them with grace, skill, and even joy. We stop trying to force the river to bend to our will, and instead, we become expert swimmers, using our effort to navigate the currents with ease. This entire journey, from our first clumsy attempts to be mindful to this profound understanding of effortless action, has equipped us with a deep well of wisdom and a rich toolkit of practices. It has taken us from the historical scene of the Buddha's last moments to the intimate territory of our own mind and heart. Now, all that remains is to gather these precious threads and weave them together into a simple, practical, and healing ritual. A sequence of gentle actions that you can use every single night to put these teachings into practice and to guide yourself home to a place of deep and restorative peace. Our long journey together through the landscape of this profound teaching is now drawing to a close. We have walked the path from the grove of sal trees in ancient India to the very doorstep of our own consciousness. We have explored the great truths of impermanence and dissatisfaction. We have tended our inner garden with compassion and loving kindness. We have learned to sit with our fears, to let go of our burdens, and to find the light of refuge within ourselves. We have seen how all the striving and effort of the path ultimately leads us back to the profound simplicity of this present moment. Now, all that remains is to weave these threads of wisdom into a simple, tangible practice you can use every single night. Let us transform these ideas from something you know into something you do. This is not another chore to add to your list. Think of it as a gift of kindness you offer to yourself at the end of a long day, a gentle ritual to cleanse the slate of the mind and prepare the ground for a deep, healing, and restorative rest. This is how we integrate the Buddha's final words, appamadena sampadeta, into our life, making them a living reality as we drift into sleep. The first step is to consciously create a sanctuary for the last hour, or even the last 30 minutes before you intend to sleep. Begin to create a boundary between the world of doing and the world of being. This is a practice of right action for your own well-being. Dim the lights in your room, signaling to your body that the day is ending. Make the conscious, powerful choice to put away your phone. Place it on the other side of the room so you are not tempted by its siren song of endless information and connection. Turn off the television, the computer, the podcasts. Let the digital noise of the world fall away. You might open a window to let in the cool night air, to listen for a moment to the quiet sounds of the world powering down. This simple act of creating a quiet, screen-free environment is a profound act of self-respect. It tells your nervous system that the time for stimulation is over. The time for peace has begun. The second step, once you are lying comfortably in bed, is to release the body. This is the practice of mindfulness of the body, our first and most reliable anchor. Take 3 slow, deep, intentional breaths. As you inhale, be aware of the air filling your lungs. As you exhale, do so with a gentle sigh, and imagine all the physical tension, all the tightness in your shoulders, your jaw, and your back melting away into the mattress beneath you. Feel the full weight of your body being completely supported. You don't have to hold yourself up any longer. Feel your head heavy on the pillow. Feel your arms and legs heavy and relaxed. Let your body know that its work for the day is done. Give it your full permission to let go. The third, and perhaps most healing step, is to conduct a compassionate review of your day. This is the practice of letting go, of forgiveness, of karuna and metta. With your eyes closed, gently allow the events of the day to drift through your awareness. Do not look at them with the sharp eye of a critic, but with the warm, gentle gaze of a loving grandparent. First, bring to mind any small moment of joy or pleasure, a kind word from a colleague, the taste of a good meal, the beauty of the afternoon light. Savor the memory of that pleasant feeling for a moment. Feel gratitude for it, and then gently let it go, without clinging. Next, allow any moment of difficulty or frustration to arise, a mistake you made, a conversation that went poorly, a moment of sadness. See it clearly. Acknowledge the pain of that moment. The first arrow, notice any story of self-blame or judgment. The second arrow, and now, with your out-breath, consciously let it go. It is over. It lives now only in your memory. You do not need to carry its weight into your sleep. Finally, practice the art of forgiveness. If there is anything you did or said today that you regret, offer yourself your own forgiveness. You are a human being, learning and growing. Say to yourself, "May I be at peace with my imperfections." And if you are holding on to any anger or resentment towards another, see if you can, for your own sake, set down that heavy, burning stone. For tonight, just for tonight, wish them peace and release them from your mind. You are cleansing the emotional body, preparing it for pure rest. The fourth step is to set a wise intention. This is the practice of right intention, and it is where we directly invoke the Buddha's final words. With your mind now clearer and your heart softer, you can silently repeat the phrase, Appamadana Sampadata, as a personal dedication for the night. You can use its meaning to form your intention. You might say to yourself, with gentle awareness, "I will rest deeply," or "May my mind be heedful of peace as I sleep," or even more simply, "I will let my body and mind heal tonight." You are gently pointing your consciousness in the direction of wholesome rest, replacing the usual looping anxieties with a clear and kind purpose. The fifth and final step is the ultimate act of simplicity. It is to let go of everything, of all the practices, all the concepts, all the steps, and to simply come home to your anchor. Rest your full, gentle attention on the natural, unforced rhythm of your own breathing. Feel the subtle rise of your abdomen on the in-breath and the gentle fall on the out-breath. There is nothing else you need to do. There is nothing left to figure out. Each breath is an anchor in the calm sea of the present moment. If your mind wanders, as it may, just gently and kindly guide it back to the next breath. This simple, rhythmic sensation is the perfect, gentle lullaby to carry you across the threshold into the world of deep, peaceful, and restorative sleep. This ritual is your gift to yourself, a way to diligently and heedfully bring your day to a beautiful and peaceful close. And so, our journey together comes to a gentle close. We began this reflection in a quiet grove in ancient India, listening to the final words whispered by a great teacher on the cusp of his final piece. From that sacred moment, we traveled into the very heart of his teaching, unpacking the profound meaning of Appamadina Sampaditha, realizing that this call to strive is not a demand for anxious effort, but a loving encouragement to live with a gentle, vigilant, and unwavering mindfulness. We have walked together through the many rooms of this wisdom. We have seen how understanding impermanence can free us from clinging, how looking with courage at our own suffering can be the beginning of healing. We have learned to tend the garden of our mind, to nourish the flowers of compassion and loving kindness, while gently removing the weeds of our habitual negativity. We have found an anchor in the body, a way to ride the waves of our feelings, and a quiet place on the riverbank from which to watch our thoughts flow by. We have learned to let go of our heavy burdens, to face our fears with a steady heart, and to find the ultimate source of refuge and light within ourselves. And finally, we have woven all of this into a simple, nightly ritual of peace. As you now settle into the deep quiet of the night, let this one truth be your final comfort. The Buddha's last teaching was not a burden, but a gift of ultimate empowerment. It is the loving assurance that you do not need to wait for a perfect future or for some external savior. The peace you seek is not in a faraway place. It is a quality of presence that can be cultivated right here, in this bed, with this breath. It is not something you must find, but something you can allow. It is a homecoming to the quiet sanctuary of your own being. You have all the tools you will ever need. You have your breath, a faithful, rhythmic anchor, always available to bring you back to the present moment. You have your awareness, a gentle, non-judgmental light that can illuminate even the darkest corners of the mind. And you have your intention, the quiet power to point your heart towards kindness and peace. There is nothing more to learn tonight. There is nothing more to do. There is only rest. Let the echo of these ancient words be a gentle lullaby, guiding you into a deep, serene, and truly peaceful sleep. Rest now. Rest well.